Okay, so today we've got two Torah portions. We've got in the wilderness, Bamidbar, and lift up, Naso. So in the Torah portion, in the first part, I'm going to be looking at the Torah portion Bamidbar, which is all about how the camp moved through the wilderness, how it was broken up, and how it was put in place. But I want to look before that at the history that has brought us to this point, because where the Israelites are now, they're a year after they've come out of the land of Egypt, and a lot of stuff has happened. So I want to go back, right back to when Moshe was in Egypt, and see just what's brought us to this point. We're starting a new book, beginning of the book of Numbers, and it's actually at this point that some significant changes happen. They've received the Torah, they've been freed from Egypt, and now Yahovah says, now we're going to move out into the wilderness, and he's going to lead them to the promised land. That's where they would be going. We'll see the sin of the spies in a couple of weeks' time. In the second part, what I want to look at is some of Yahovah's laws that are in Torah portion Naso that give us a real insight into what's important to him, what he wants to achieve through his Torah, or seemingly at least what the effects would be of his Torah, presumably meaning that he would intend them to be the effects. Specifically, the idea of bringing restoration in a situation where there's been conflict between two people, how Yahovah's Torah actually allows them to have a restoration of their relationship, a restoration of trust. And there's numerous examples of laws like this throughout the Torah, so we'll be looking at those, as well as the idea of how Yahovah wants us to be as a part of his people, and what he expects of us now that we've been cleansed of our sins. We can see some of the way that he works in areas like that in certain of the laws in this particular portion of the Torah. In the third part, I want to look at something that I've received the highest, greatest concentration of questions about. And by that I mean in the shortest time, the most times I've been asked about it. It's probably not what I've been asked about the most of all things I've been asked about, but recently in that short period of time, and that is the mark of the beast. What is this mark of the beast? Are we seeing anything perhaps at the moment that may qualify as the mark of the beast? So I'm going to be examining those things, having a little look at prophecy throughout Scripture, some bits from Daniel, some bits from Revelation, and we'll get an idea of what is expected of us and how one can avoid taking the mark of the beast. So we'll look at that in the third part. So we start Numbers chapter 1, verse 1. It says, Yahovah spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai. So this is where they are. They're still at Sinai, in the tent of meeting. So they've constructed the tabernacle at this point on the first day of the second Chodesh, the second year. So this is a year later after they've come out of Egypt. Obviously, they come out of Egypt on the 14th day. Well, this is when they ate the Passover in the evening of the 14th day of the first month of the first year. Now, a year later, we see them setting up the tabernacle in the first Chodesh, and now we're in the second Chodesh, the second month of the second year. So we've had over a year since they've come out of Egypt, and they're still at Sinai. So there's been a lot of events which have brought us to this point. So I want to go back and have a look at them. Moshe, after having been found in a basket of reeds, his mother having had the choice of having the male child killed, or do what she did. She put him in the basket of reeds in the ark, and Pharaoh's daughter found Moshe. She takes him to raise him, and she actually gives him to his mother to look after. Unknowingly, she gives him to his mother to look after. But Moshe grows up as Egyptian royalty. He has access in Egypt to the top levels of society. But in this position, we know that Moshe saw one of the Hebrews being mistreated, and he actually ends up killing the Egyptian who's mistreating him and fleeing from Egypt. He finds himself in the house of a guy who's introduced to us as Reuel. Reuel means friend of God in Hebrew. Later we see him as Yitro. And he marries one of Yitro's daughters. And it's significant because Moshe is 40 years old when this happens, when he becomes a murderer and he flees from Egypt for fear of his life. He finds himself in a position in this guy's household where he's a shepherd, where he's receiving training essentially for what he's going to need in shepherding Yehovah's people. And it's significant because he's there for 40 years, and we can see ourselves in Moshe. Okay, we were strangers in the world. He was Egyptian royalty, but he was actually a Hebrew, just like us in the world. We're strangers and pilgrims on the earth. We're actually Hebrews, and we have periods of time in our lives, like Moshe had here, where he was not hearing from Yehovah, but what he was undergoing was training him for the future. He was experiencing things in his life that would benefit him later. And at the right time, Yehovah appears to him in the burning bush when he's 80 years old. Okay, we've said before, people will sometimes feel like maybe their life's lacking purpose and they're just kind of getting on, doing whatever they're getting on doing. And they don't feel like Yehovah has purpose in their life, perhaps. I've heard people say this before. Moshe was 80, and Yehovah, in his perfect timing, appeared to him and told him that he was going to be a part of something which had been prophesied generations before. We also need to bear in mind when we're understanding where we actually are in the wilderness of Sinai, the second month, the second year after they've been taken out of the land of Egypt, we also need to appreciate exactly what's happened on the earth. Yehovah appeared to Abraham. Abraham lived his life. He had two sons, Ishmael and Yitzchak. Yitzchak had two sons, Yaakov and Esav. So imagine this unfolding on the earth and these people groups starting on the earth. Yaakov had 12 sons. They were living in the land of Canaan, and Yehovah had it so that through the evil, through the wicked deeds of Yaakov's other sons, Yosef was installed in a position in the land of Mitzrayim where he would be able to provide for them, to provide food for them in a famine that Yehovah knew was coming, something else that Yehovah used. So Yaakov and all of his sons went and lived in the land of Egypt. Yehovah had said to Abraham a few generations before, that those people would be freed. And what we're seeing Moshe being used for is a fulfillment of that. Yaakov's sons in the land of Egypt then had 2, maybe 3 generations, 4 generations on the outside of descendants. Sometimes there's only 2 generations down from Yaakov. They're the people that we're actually seeing being released from the land of Egypt at this point. So these events that are happening on the earth, Yehovah is seeing over this special family to whom he's made promises. Now Moshe is being used in the fulfillment of these promises. He's going to take them out of the land of Egypt. So he speaks to him out of the burning bush, and he gives him what would probably be quite a terrifying mission. He says that he wants him to go and speak to Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go. And we know that Yehovah is with Moshe. He tells him that he's not going to listen, and he tells him what the consequences are that he's to explain to Pharaoh as they go. And we know that Pharaoh was a stubborn man, and that Yehovah strengthened him in his stubbornness, and he would not let the people go, even though there was these great works of Yehovah happening on the earth. And again, think of what it is to be a part of this special family. A few generations down from Jacob, who have Elohim so close to them that you can see all of these wondrous signs and wonders happening in the heavens. You can see Pharaoh, who was supposed to be a stubborn-hearted man. Yehovah used that to show his power on the earth, not only to the Egyptians, but also to this special family who he's promised this blessing to, who he's now going to lead into the land. Think of what it is to be in this family, to have this opportunity now. We're on the way to the land. This is only over the course of about 8 generations from the promise being made to Abraham to where we are right now. Comes to the final plague, and they're told that the firstborn will be killed. He tells the Israelites that if they are to paint the blood, the Passover lamb, on their doorposts, the plague will pass over their houses. It's described as the plague. It's also described as the destroyer will pass over their houses. So in faith, they're obedient to what they've been told to do, and they paint the blood on the doorposts. And of course, that night, the destroyer comes. Plague passes through the land of Egypt and kills all of the firstborn of the land of Egypt. Again, imagine what that's like to be in that situation. The situation of an Egyptian seeing the great power of Yehovah, and the situation of one of the Israelites. We know that some of the Egyptians, in fact, chose to go with the Israelites and to leave the land. Having asked their neighbors for gold and for silver, they leave the land of Egypt. For their jewelry, they leave the land of Egypt, Moshe leading the way. And they follow the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. They follow it to the Sea of Reeds. Then they find out that Pharaoh's army are following them. And it's interesting because all the way through this, you can kind of see these moments where their faith is just faltering. The incredible position that they're in, more than anybody has ever had Elohim close to them in the entire history of the world. These people are seeing this fulfillment of the promise. They're seeing Yehovah work and bring all of these plagues, all of this destruction on the land of Egypt, so that what they could have never imagined just previously when they were in slavery is that they would be released, and they've been released. And now Yehovah is leading them in a pillar of cloud. And yet when they see Pharaoh's army, they still fear. Yehovah, of course, comes through for them. He's still guiding this special family, parts the sea for them, and they go through, and when the Egyptians follow them, the sea comes back on them and destroys them. Of course, at this point, the people are all made up, but we can see through the events just previous to this and just after this that their faith isn't quite there with all that Yehovah has done for them. You'll hear people say sometimes, if Yehovah would just appear to me, or if God would just appear to me, I believe in God and I follow the scriptures and all of this. But it's actually not true. These people had his presence right there with them. He rescued them from all of these terrible situations, and yet they still were not faithful when it came to them being given manna from heaven being supernaturally provided for in the most amazing way, they still, when they saw that the food would rot the next day, when they were told, don't gather any on the Sabbath day, it'll be okay, just gather what you need the day before, still we see this lack of faith in them. We see that they were, as soon as they came to a place where they had no water, instantly there's this kind of rebellion fermenting in the people, and they're saying, why have you brought us out of the land of Egypt just to kill us? We see Yehovah protecting them and defeating their enemies when it comes to the Amalekites, and all of these incredible things, much more than anyone else in the world has seen. And yet these people are still not faithful to Yehovah. When they come to Mount Sinai, in fact, they hear Yehovah's voice and they see the thunder, they see the lightning, hear the thunder. And after they've received the 10 words, it tells us that they said to Moshe that they did not want to hear from Yehovah, that they wanted Moshe to speak to Yehovah for them. We're told in the book of Hebrews, actually, that they could not bear what was commanded, that if a beast touched the mountain, it should be shot through or stoned. So they couldn't take what Yehovah had commanded them, even though they've seen all these incredible things that Yehovah is doing. So it's Moshe that goes up to hear from Yehovah what is expected of the people. And he tells Moshe his mishpatim. Moshe comes back down and he tells all of the people what Yehovah has said. And he reads from the scroll of the covenant, reads all of his mishpatim to them. And of course they say, whatever Yehovah says, that we will do. Yehovah says, okay, come up now to the top of the mountain and I'll tell you what I expect. I'll give you the Torah. So Moshe goes back up to the top of the mountain and Yehovah gives him the instructions for making a house for him. Again, think of who these people are, this special family that Yehovah said, I'll rescue them from Egypt. I'll lead them into the land. I'll lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey. He's there in the midst of them. He says, build me a house so that I can go about with you. Moshe receives the instructions. Yehovah writes with the finger of Elohim in 2 tablets of stone. But meanwhile, the people have seen that Moshe has been a little while and is coming back, and they decide that they're not going to follow what they've been told. Don't make idols of gold and silver. And they decide that they're going to make a golden calf. And that's how they're going to worship Yehovah. They're going to have a feast to Yehovah, but they're going to worship this golden calf as the Elohim who led you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Very much reminds me of how people are today. Now that they've seen Yeshua's been a little while, hasn't he? And so what have we got? We've got people who've returned to various forms of worship that are forbidden by Yehovah. They'll still say that they're worshipping the God of the Bible, but they want to worship him by pagan observances or just by doing the bits of the Torah that they want to do, not doing other bits. So of course Moshe comes down from the mountain and he's not happy. Yehovah's told him what's going on up there and he's pled to intercede for the people. And he comes down with the tablets of stone and he breaks the tablets of stone. And of course at this point the Levites join with him and kill 3,000 of the people. We see Yehovah bringing these plagues about on the people. He'll bring plagues against them and the people will be destroyed. We know from the scriptures that it's the people who were involved in the sin who end up suffering the consequences in things like plagues. And we saw the other week as well that he, in some of the plagues, was making atonement for his dwelling place that was in the midst of the people. Moshe had been up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. That was the long period of time He was up there when they started to go astray. So Moshe goes back up the mountain, another 40 days and 40 nights, and he engraves 2 tablets of stone with the words himself. So we've got 2 periods of time there, 2 periods of 40 days and 40 nights, which is about 3 months, 3 chodeshim, roughly. But we're a year out from when they left Egypt. When Moshe comes down anyway, he tells the people what Yahovah wants. He tells them that they're all to bring a contribution of the stuff that they left the land of Egypt with. And at this point, all of the people come happily to bring a contribution. They bring far too much stuff. In fact, they bring much more than is needed. And we see these events in these people's lives where they're more than happy to do these acts of obedience. Just like you see people who are more than happy to do religious works or to fast for 300 days or whatever it is, to do huge acts of what they see as obedience. But they're isolated acts of obedience. It doesn't come as a package as obedience as a whole. What it actually is people saying, okay, I'm comfortable with doing this, and I'm going to do it so much, I'm kind of going to make myself feel better. I'm going to make myself feel like I'm obedient to Yahovah. Remember that time when I gave him all of my gold and all of my jewelry? That's how much I love Yahovah. But they're not loving him entirely, and we see that these people have all these instances of faithlessness. So Yahovah gives his spirit to Aholiab and Bezalel, and gives them the spirit to teach the people as well, and they create all of the items that are to be in Yahovah's house. The people create the curtains and the soft furnishings. They create the priestly garments, and eventually, once they've made the tabernacle, they deliver it to Moshe, and Moshe puts up the tabernacle on the first day of the first Chodesh. So I don't know how long it takes them to make all of these things, but we've got Moshe being on the mountain for about 3 months, and we've had however long it's taken them to get to Sinai, and then they've been dwelling at Sinai. And the total takes us to just over a year. So on the first day, Moshe erects the tabernacle, and then for 7 days the priests are ordained, and they have to stay within the door of the tent of meeting. From that point, Yahovah can meet with Moshe. He meets with him in the tabernacle, probably as we saw in the Holy of Holies itself. That's certainly where Moshe heard Yahovah speaking to him from. So on the 8th day, everything's done. Everything's in place. The tabernacle's been put up. This is the 8th day of the first Chodesh. Then from then until the point where we're at now, it's a period of about 25 days, roughly 25 days. And the people are bringing their means of drawing near to Yahovah. They're bringing their burnt offering in the morning and in the evening, and all of these things, the offerings that are required of them in all of the different situations. So Yahovah is now living in a Mishkan, in the middle of all of the Mishkans of the children of Israel. Which brings us to where we start the Torah portion. Yahovah spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of meeting, on the first day of the second Chodesh in the second year, after they had come out of the land of Mitzrayim. He said to them, take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male, head by head. So this census is going to be of the males. It's going to be every male from 20 years old and above. Okay, so this is when Yahovah says the people who are going to be held accountable for the sin of the spies and being faithless are going to be those 20 years old and above. We're going to find out who those people are in this Torah portion. Everyone going out to the Savah in Yisrael, number them by their Sevaot, you and Aharon. And in the English, we miss there that army and divisions is actually Savah, and it's plural, Sevaot. So it could be army and armies, or it could be going out to the host. Number them by their hosts. Sevaot, Yahovah is called Yahovah Sevaot, which means Yahovah of hosts. When he comes with the host of heaven, he comes with the Savah of heaven. And a man from every tribe should be with you, each one the head of his father's house. Okay, so we saw when we were looking at leadership that the Israelites chose leaders for themselves, leaders of 50s, leaders of hundreds. Okay, but these leaders, as we're going to see, are going to be called by Yahovah. So this is a representation of the camp of Israel. Wouldn't have been exactly like this for a start. Touch my pointer. For a start, I don't think the tabernacle was this shape or this big. I don't know what shape it was. I don't think it was the traditionally described model, but I don't think it was like this. But this just says for illustrative purposes. You can see around the tabernacle, there are camps on the north side. This is the north side of the tabernacle. On the east side, this is a little camp of Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons. You see the door of the tabernacle faced to the east, and Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons camped in front of it. To the south and to the west. And they were all camps of Levites, as we'll see. And we had 3 camps on the east, 3 in the south, 3 in the west, 3 on the north of the actual tribes. Some people think that it would have been organized like this. When I look at the actual numbers, it wouldn't have been a cross like a cross that we're used to. We're used to seeing with a small headpiece on the cross. There was about 150,000 people on either side on one axis and about 180,000 people on either side on the other axis. So it could have been in a cross shape. You can imagine Bilam when he looks down on the camps of the children of Israel, that could have been what he saw. Like I say, it's just a visual representation to show you so you can appreciate how the camp was broken down and how it was set up. Numbers 2, 1-2 says, And Yahovah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, The children of Israel are to camp, each one by his own banner, beside the sign of his father's house. Let him camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. And we don't know whether or not the sign of their father's house was something that they had in the land of Egypt, whether it was something that they newly stitched at that point. We're not sure. Was it like a coat of arms? Because there weren't many generations down from those 12 original children of Israel, 2 to a maximum of 4 on the extremity. So maybe they had these banners, these signs of whichever son of Yaakov it was. But it says, let them camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. Of course, as we've seen when we're looking at atonement being made for Yahovah's house, that he is concerned with it being defiled. We've got the Levites immediately around the tabernacle. They provide like a barrier between Yahovah and the tribes themselves. So they're to camp at a distance. We're going to see that the unclean people have to be taken out of the camp so that they're even more at a distance from the tabernacle of Yahovah. Numbers 1:16-19. And the reason that these are out of order is because the first 4 chapters of Numbers are a lot of numbers, lists, and things that aren't easily relatable when you just have somebody read them or when you read them without studying them. So I'm going to show you what these chapters say in a visual form. I'm going to show you the important parts from the text as well. These are the ones called from the congregation, leaders of their fathers' tribes, leaders of the thousands of Israel. So these are the Nasieh. A leader, or sometimes a prince, is a Nasi. A Nasieh is the plural. These are the Nasieh, the heads of the thousands of Israel, and these are people who are called by Yahovah. And Moshe and Aharon took these men who were called by name, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second Chodesh, and they declared their ancestry by clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and above, each one head by head. As Yahovah commanded Moshe, so he registered them in the wilderness of Sinai. So this is a census that is taken. This is them being registered. To the east, we have the camp of Yehudah, and Yehudah had a Nasi. And I put these pictures in. I put them in last year so that, again, we can familiarize ourselves with what the situation actually is. This is a special family of people who've been brought out of Egypt by Yehovah, and these are real people. These are generations down from Jacob's direct sons. And their leader is a guy who is called Nachshon, son of Aminadav. The number of names, every male head by head from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the Savah in Yehudah, was 74,600. So that's not the women and it's not the children. This is just the men. They camped on the east of the dwelling place, and a caveat is given to us in the text that says they were towards the sunrise. The tribe of Yisachar camped with Yehudah. They camped in what was called the camp of Yehudah. There was one tribe among the three on each side, after which the camp was named. And on the east it was Yehudah. Their Nasi was a guy called Nathanael, son of Zuar. The number of names, every male head by head, 20 years old and above, everyone in the Savah is 54,400. And again, they camped on the east with the tribe of Yehudah towards the sunrise. There was also Zebulun. The Nasi was Eliav, son of Chilon. In their Savah, there was 57,400, and they were on the east with Yehudah and Yisachar. The tribe of Reuven was the tribe that the camp of Reuven in the south was named after. And their Nasi was Elitzur, son of Shedeur. In their Savah, there was 46,500, and they camped on the south. They camped with the tribe of Shimon, whose Nasi was Shalumiel, son of Zurishaddai. In their Savah, there was 59,300. They camped on the south. The tribe of Gad camped with them. Their Nasi was Eliasaph, son of Deuel. In their Savah, there was 45,650 men 20 years old and above. They camped on the south with Reuven and Shimon. The camp of Ephraim was named after the tribe of Ephraim, whose Nasi was Elishama, son of Amihud. Their Savah was 40,500 people. They camped west behind the dwelling place, along with Ephraim's brother, Manasseh, his descendants. Their Nasi was Gamliel, son of Pedazur. Their Savah contained 32,200 people, so a relatively small tribe. But after all the plagues have taken place, when all of the people involved in wickedness have been killed, Manasseh is one of the largest tribes. Camped west behind the dwelling place, and you'll see that when we get to Numbers 26. Along with Ephraim and Manasseh, we have the tribe of Binyamin. Their Nasi was Avidan, son of Gidoni, and in their Savah was 35,400. They camped west behind the dwelling place also. The camp of Dan, named after the tribe of Dan, whose Nasi was Achietzer, son of Ammishaddai. Their Savah was 62,700, and they camped to the north of the dwelling place with the tribe of Asher. The Nasi was Pagiel, son of Ochran. The Savah was 41,500 in size, and they camped to the north, the tribe of Naphtali. The Nasi was Achirah, son of Enan. The Savah was 53,400, and they camped to the north of the dwelling place in the camp of Dan. It tells us in Numbers 1:44 to 46, these were those registered whom Moshe and Aharon registered with the Nasi'eh of Yisrael, 12 men, each one for his father's house, and all those that were registered of the children of Israel by their father's houses, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the Savah in Israel. All those that were registered were 603,550. So they were the 12 tribes. Okay, remember there are 13 tribes in Israel. The 13th tribe is the Levites. When they're listed, you only get them listed as 12, like here, because the Levites aren't listed with them. Numbers 1:47 to 54 says, but the Levites were not registered among them by their father's tribe, because Yahovah had spoken to Moshe, saying, only the tribe of Levi you do not register, nor take a census of them among the children of Israel. Instead, appoint the Levites over the dwelling place of the witness, over all its furnishings, and over all that belongs to it. They bear the dwelling place and all its furnishings, and they attend to it and the camp around the dwelling place. So they did not go out to the Savah. They were not in the Savah of Israel. They wouldn't be involved in defense. They were involved in the dwelling place. When the dwelling place is to go forward, the Levites take it down. When the dwelling place is to be set up, the Levites set it up. And the Zar who comes near is put to death. The Zar being he to whom it is unlawful to come near to the dwelling place. So anyone who's not a Levite, essentially. The children of Israel shall pitch their tents, each one by his own camp, everyone by his own banner, according to their Sebaot. But let the Levites camp around the dwelling place of the witness, so that there be no wrath on the congregation of the children of Israel, and the Levites guard the duty of the dwelling place of the witness. So that means that they will do what Yahovah has commanded to be done with the dwelling place, with the furnishings and all of those sorts of things. They camp around the dwelling place, and the tribes of Israel camp at a distance. The children of Israel did according to all that Yahovah commanded Moshe, so they did. Numbers 3:1 to 4 tells us information about the priests. Okay, these are the generations that told out what's brought forth of Aharon and Moshe when Yahovah spoke with Moshe on Mount Sinai. And these are the names of the sons of Aharon: Nadav, the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aharon, the anointed priests, whom he ordained to act as priests. And Nadav and Abihu had died in the presence of Yahovah, before his face, or before Yahovah and his panim, when they drew near with strange fire, again, unlawful fire, in the presence of Yahovah in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So Eleazar and Ithamar acted as priests in the presence of Aharon, their father. So we're given this information about Aharon's sons, and specifically we're told Nadav and Abihu died. Okay, so there's only two of Aharon's sons who are left at the moment. And we're given this information again in another piece of scripture that we'll come to in a little bit, but I think it's interesting because I think it perhaps provides a link between what's happening in that piece of scripture and something that I believe would have had to have happened when this happened, that remains unsaid. Verse 5 says, and Yahovah spoke to Moshe, saying, draw near with the tribe of Levi, set them before Aharon and the priest, and they shall serve him. And they shall guard this duty and the duty of all the congregation in the presence of the tent of meeting, to do the service of the tent of meeting. And they shall keep all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, and the duty of the children of Israel to do the service of the dwelling place. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are given ones given to him from among the children of Israel. And appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood, and the stranger, the czar who comes near, shall be put to death. So Aaron and his sons are responsible for keeping all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, to do the service of the dwelling place. But there's only actually Aaron and his two sons. They're given the Levites to do certain duties, and those duties are detailed for us in this Torah portion too. So the tribe, or the group of Levites, the clan of the Levites, which dwelt to the west of the tabernacle, was called the Gershoni, the descendants of Gershon. Their Nasi was a guy called Eliasaph, son of Leel. The Gershon himself had descendants who had their own families. Libni and the Shimi, they're the people who made up the Gershoni. Of them, the ones who Yehovah tells Moshe to count are the males from 1 chodesh old and above. Okay, 1 month old and above. That's all of the males essentially in the various clans within the Levites. And there were 7,500 of them. The registered ones from 30 to 50 who would go into the tabernacle to do the service in the tabernacle, which was entrusted to the sons of Aaron, and they were given the Levites to help them. There were 2,630. So they're going to be the ones, when we see their duties in a second, they're going to be the ones performing these duties. They camped westward behind the dwelling place. In Numbers 4:27 to 28, we're told Aaron and his sons are to command all the service of the sons of the Gershoni, all their burden and all their service. You shall appoint to them all the duty of their burden. This is the service of the clans, or the families, the mishpacha, of the sons of Gershon in the tent of meeting, and let their duties be under the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. There's only Aaron, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The duties of the Gershoni, and as it turns out, the Merari, which we'll look at, they're both under the hand of Ithamar. So they're going to help Ithamar. This is what they did. They would bear the curtains of the dwelling place in the tent of meeting, its covering, the covering of fine leather that is on it, the covering of the door of the tent of meeting, the screens of the courtyard, the covering for the door of the gate of the courtyard, their cords, all the equipment for their service, and all that is made for them. So essentially they carried the lighter stuff. They carried all the curtains, all the ropes, the cords, all the stuff that was needed for the outside of the tent of meeting, the covering of skin and all of that stuff. Then we have the tribe of Merari. Their Nasi was a guy called Suriel, son of Abihail. These are their families. There were two families of Merari as well. There were the Machli and there were the Mushi. There were 6,200 of them from Chodesh old and above. Those of the ones who were Chodesh old and above, who were in between 30 and 50, who were to do the service in the tent of meeting, bearing the burden of the duty, which is carrying all the stuff. There were 3,200 of them, so just over half. They camped on the north side of the dwelling place. In Numbers 4:33, we're told, similarly to the Gershuni, they were under the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron, as well. This was their service. They would carry the boards of the dwelling place, its bars, its columns, sockets, the columns around the courtyard, their sockets, their pegs, their cords, all their equipment and all their service. And they were told, assign to each by name the equipment of the duty of their burden. Okay, so everybody in the tribe of Merari was told specifically what they would be responsible for carrying. But you'll notice it's all the heavy stuff that Merari were responsible for moving. Then we have the Kehati. You might have heard of them as the Kohathites. They were the sons of Kahat. Their Nasi was a guy called Elitzaphan, son of Uzziel. These were their clans. There were more of the Kehati. The Amrami, the Yitzhari, the Chevroni, and the Azieli. Of all of them, the males, Chodesh old and above, there were 8,600. Of those who did the work, 30 to 50-year-olds, 2,750. They camped on the south of the dwelling place. We're told this in Numbers 4 to 16. This is the service of the sons of Kahat. Now, the sons of Kahat also included Aharon and his descendants. Aharon was a Kohathite, but Aharon and his descendants were separated out from the sons of Kahat in order to be the priests. So these are the other sons of Kahat, the most set apart. Okay, the word matters is not there. It just says the Kodesh HaKadashim, that of the holy that was set apart from the holy. At the breaking of camp, Aharon and his sons shall come, and they shall take down the covering veil, cover the ark of the witness with it. They shall put it on a covering of fine leather, a covering of fine leather, and spread over that an all blue covering, and shall insert its poles. So the ones who are going to carry these things are going to be the sons of Kahat. The ones who had to cover them up and prepare them to be carried were Aharon and his two sons. And on the table of showbread, interestingly, the word showbread is not there. Show and bread are not even implied there. It is the table of panim. Panim means face, and by implication, presence. So it's actually the table of presence is what it says in the Hebrew. But people know it's the table of showbread. They shall spread the blue covering and shall put on it the dishes and the ladles and the bowls and the jars for the pouring and the presents on it. They shall spread over them with a scarlet covering and cover the same with a covering of fine leather and shall insert its poles. So all of these items we saw when they were being made, they all had rings for the poles to be carried, and this is why. They would be covered over by Aharon and his sons, and then the sons of Kahat would come in. And shall take a blue covering and cover the lampstand of the light with its lamps and its snuffers, with its trays and all its oil vessels by which they serve it. And they shall put it with all its utensils in a covering of fine leather and put it on a bar. And over the golden altar they shall spread the blue covering and cover it with a covering of fine leather and shall insert its poles. That's the altar of incense. And shall take all the utensils of service with which they serve in the set apart place, or the set apart in the holy is literally what it says, and shall put them in a blue covering, cover them with a covering of fine leather, and put them on a bar, and shall remove the ashes from the altar and spread the purple covering on it, and shall put on it all its utensils by which they serve there, the fire holders, the forks, the shovels, the basins, all the utensils of the altar, and shall spread on it a covering of fine leather and insert its poles. So that is the brazen altar. And when Aharon and his sons have finished covering the holy and all the furnishings of the holy at the breaking of camp, then the sons of Kahat shall come to lift them, but let them not touch that which is holy, that which is Kodesh, lest they die. These matters are the burden of the sons of Kahat in the tent of meeting. So even though they were to carry these objects, they were not to touch them. They had to be covered over, because if they were to touch them, then they would die. And the oversight of Eleazar, son of Aharon. So this is his oversight. This is the other son of Aharon from Ithamar, is the oil for the light, the sweet incense, the daily grain offering, the daily mincha, and the anointing oil, and the oversight of all the dwelling place and all that is in it, with the set apart and its furnishings. Okay, so Ithamar, he would direct the Gershoni and the Merari, and Eleazar was responsible for these things. Numbers 7, 1-9 gives us some information about these sons of Levi. And it came to be when Moshe finished setting up the dwelling place that he anointed it, and he set it apart, and all its furnishings, as well as the altar and all its utensils. Thus he anointed them and set them apart. So this is all the first 8 days of the first Chodesh of the second year. And the leaders of Israel, heads of their fathers' houses, who were the leaders of the tribes, and over the ones registered, the ones that just counted, they all drew near. And they brought their offering, their means of drawing near, before Yehovah. What they brought were 6 wagons and 12 cattle, a wagon for every 2 of the leaders, and for each one a bull. And they brought them near before the dwelling place. So this is actually an example that we have of the leaders of the tribes bringing a spiritual mincha. It wasn't the prescribed mincha, the grain and the frankincense, the oil and those sorts of things, but they were bringing their material goods. So this is them bringing a spiritual mincha. They brought the wagons and the cattle. Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, accept these from them, and they shall be used in the service of the tent of meeting, and you shall give them to the Levites, each one according to his service. So we've just seen what the Levites were all responsible for. So now these wagons were divided among them so that they could carry these things. And Moshe took the wagons and the cattle and gave them to the Levi. And he gave 2 wagons and 4 cattle to the sons of Gershon according to their service. And he gave 4 wagons and 8 cattle to the sons of Merari according to their service under the hand of Ithamar, son of Aharon the priest. So Gershon, who were carrying the tent, cords, the lighter things, they were given 2 wagons, and each wagon was pulled by 2 cattle. So again, when I imagine the size of the tabernacle, I think if they were to break down the tabernacle and put it on 2 wagons, it's probably not all that big. These aren't going to be wagons like an 18-wheeler. These are going to be wagons like you would expect to be pulled by 2 cattle, perhaps 2-wheeled wagons, 4-wheeled wagons maybe. And he gave 4 wagons and 8 cattle to the sons of Merari, according to their service under the hand of Ithamar, son of Aharon the priest. So this is all the bars. This is all of the columns with their silver sockets, and the sockets which connected the bars together, and the boards, and all of those things. And all of that fit on 4 wagons. But to the sons of Kehath, he gave none, because theirs was the service of the Kodesh, which they bore on their shoulders. So after everything's covered, they come in and they were carrying all of those items on their shoulders. And this is how they would move around the wilderness. Numbers 4:17-20 says, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, do not cut off the tribe of the clans of the Kehati from among the Levi, but do this to them, and they shall live and not die when they approach the Kodesh HaKadashim, the Holy of Holies. Aharon and his son shall go in and appoint each of them to his service and to his burden. They are not, however, to go in to watch while the set apart, the Kodesh, again the word objects isn't there, are being covered lest they die. So they're actually told at this point, don't kill these people. First of all, they're told they're to carry these objects, and then they're told, don't kill them though, because the Torah says that anybody who's coming near to these objects is to be put to death, and that would include the Kehati under usual circumstances. They're not to come in and watch while these items are being covered. So again, in this, we see Yehovah drawing the lines, drawing the boundaries for us, and saying this far, but no further. These are the exceptions to the Torah. This far, but don't take it beyond this. Numbers 2:39 says, all the registered ones of the Levi, whom Moshe and Aharon registered at the command of Yahovah by their clans, all the males from a Chodesh old and above, were 22,000. So add that to the 603,000, at 625,000 males in Israel, not including women and children. Numbers 4:46-48 tells us, all the registered ones of the Levi, whom Moshe and Aharon and the leaders of Israel registered by their clans and by their fathers' houses, from 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who came to do the work of service and the work of bearing burdens in the tent of meeting, their registered ones were 8,580. Okay, so you've got 8,580 people who are responsible for loading the tabernacle onto 6 wagons. According to the command of Yahovah, they were registered by the hand of Moshe, each according to his service and according to his burden. Thus they were registered by him as Yahovah commanded Moshe. So it seems to me like you would, if you got 8,580 people to break down the tabernacle and load it onto the wagons, you're probably going to have them working in maybe what we would call shifts, being divided up into divisions of people. You'll do it this time, you'll do it next time. Maybe they all just got on it and broke it down and did it all really quickly. But 8,580 is quite a large number of them. Which brings me to the piece of scripture, which seems like there's a connection made. When we're reading the scriptures, if we notice that words that aren't used very often or specific phrases are used, it seems to be a way in which those pieces of scripture are linked, and where we can see details about one situation which aren't expressly revealed. We saw that particularly, I think, in the 2016-17 Torah portions. We looked at things like that quite in depth. In 1 Chronicles 24, 1-5, it says, and the divisions of the sons of Aharon. The sons of Aharon were Nadav and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. But Nadav and Abihu died before their father and had no children, so Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests. So there's that weird phrase which perhaps links these two accounts. And David with Zadok of the sons of Eleazar and Ahimelech of the sons of Ithamar divided them according to their offices in their service. And there were more leaders found of the sons of Eleazar than of the sons of Ithamar. So they divided the sons of Eleazar into 16 heads of their fathers' houses. Again, this is what we're seeing being done in this piece of scripture we're studying at the moment, the heads of their fathers' houses. And the sons of Ithamar into 8 heads of their fathers' houses. And they were divided by lot, one group as another, for there were officials of the set apart, and officials of Elohim from the sons of Eleazar, and from the sons of Ithamar. So my speculation, pure speculation, not what the scriptures teach, is that perhaps their duties were divided up by lot at this point. Certainly see it happening here, and there seems to be text which is at least very similar. I don't know if that's true. I offer you it as my thoughts that I had as I was going through this. So, this is the camp of Israel. And there's all the tribes and there's all of the Levites. That's what we've been told so far. We're also given information about how that camp would be to break up and move out. Yahovah is very specific about how he wants that to be done, the order that people have to leave in. Numbers 2 verse 9 says, all the registered ones of the camp of Yehudah, according to their Sevaot, 186,400. These depart first. So the camp of Yehudah, that's Yehudah, Yisachar, and Zebulun, they all left first. Then we've got the Gershuni. Okay, the Gershuni were the ones who carried the soft furnishings of the tent, the lighter stuff. The Merari, they're the ones who carried the boards. We're told, and the dwelling place was taken down. We're told this in Numbers 10, so this isn't actually in our Torah portions, but we are told this within the book of Numbers. The dwelling place was taken down, and the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari departed, bearing the dwelling place. So they loaded up their 6 wagons and they left. Their camps were broken down and they departed, following Yehudah. Moshe, Aharon, and Aharon's sons would have at this time, I presume, again this is an assumption, had to have broken camp at this time. Aharon's sons would have been directing what was happening in the tabernacle. Aharon would have been involved in breaking down what was happening in the tabernacle. Moshe was obviously the leader. Ithamar was the one under whose hand the Gershoni and the Merari were carrying the dwelling place. So I presume that around about now they would have had to have broken camp as well, and the tent gets broken down. Numbers 2 verse 16 says, all the registered ones of the camp of Reuven, so that's Reuven, Shimon, and Gad, according to their divisions, 151,450, and they are the second to depart. So it's worth bearing in mind at this point. If we go back to the camp of Yehudah being broken down, it says there were 186,000 on the east side. It's about 180,000. When we come to the south side, it said about 150,000. So they left next, the camp to the south. And then the Kahati, the tabernacle's been broken down, then all of the set apart objects would have been covered up. Then the Kahati, the sons of Kahat, would come in to bear those set apart objects. Then we're told that next, the Kahati departed, bearing the set apart, while the dwelling place was set up before they came. So Gershoni and Merari went first, and they took the tent with them, and they were followed by the camp of Reuven. Then the Kahati would depart, so that by the time that they got there, the dwelling place could have already been put up for them to walk straight into and put the furnishings where they needed to be, presumably before they were then arranged by the sons of Aharon. Numbers 2:24 says, all the registered ones of the camp of Ephraim, so that's Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, according to their Savaiot, 180,100, and they are the third to depart of the tribes. Numbers 2:31 says, if we go back to that, actually, that's 180,000 on that side. So on either side of the tabernacle, to the west and to the east, there are 180,000, 150,000 to the south. And if we go to the camp of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali, all the registered ones of the camp of Dan were 157,600. So again, about 150,000. They departed last. So when I consider whether that is a cross as we would imagine it, it's not exactly. Okay, the arms of the cross, the legs of the cross, the headpiece of the cross, they're all slightly uneven, and I wouldn't expect that. But if it was in the cross shape, then Bilam would have indeed seen a cross when he looked down on their camp. We don't actually know what the cross of Yeshua actually looked like, whether it was the traditional design that we're familiar with from churches. Numbers 2:32-34 tells us, these were the registered ones of the children of Israel by their fathers' houses, all who were registered according to the divisions of the camps, 603,550, not including the Levites. The Levites were not registered among the children of Israel as Yehovah commanded Moshe, 22,000 Levites. And the children of Israel did according to all that Yehovah commanded Moshe. So they camped by their banners, and so they departed, each one by his clan, according to their fathers' houses. And we don't actually have a good way of comparing the Levites to the other tribes in Israel, because the Levites were counted from a month old and above. The tribes were counted from 20 years old and above. The only other number that we have for the Levites was 30 to 50. So we don't have a good way of comparing them, but they're the figures that we have. So the camp having been broken down, everyone having left, they would come to a new place. This is how they would set up in this new place. First of all, you have the camp of Yehudah, which is Yehudah, Yisachar, and Zebulun. Then you would have the Gershoni and the Merari who had broken down the tabernacle. After Yehudah departed, then they would arrive. They would set up the tabernacle. Presumably, Moshe, Aharon, and Aharon's son's camp was established by Ithamar, or around this time, maybe after the sons of Kehat had arrived with Eleazar. And there's not very many people in the camp of Moshe, Aharon, and Aharon's sons. There's only 4 of them there. So maybe they all came and put their own tent there when they arrived. Those details aren't given to us. Then we have the camp of Reuven arriving, which is Reuven, Shimon, and Gad. Then the Kehati, those bearing the most set apart, they would arrive. Presumably, they would come in with their objects. They would put them in the tent, and that would be established before those on the west would arrive. The camp of Ephraim, which was Ephraim, Manasseh, and Binyamin. Then finally, the last people to arrive were the camp of Dan, which was Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. So that's all the information that's given to us in the first Torah portion in Bamidbar. Rather than me read it all out and you try to piece together the things in your head, you have to take parts from different parts of it and put it together and study it. So I've done that and presented it. We'll come back in the next part. Now, I think if we come back in 20 minutes, that would be good. So we'll come back at 3 o'clock UK time, and we'll look at those laws through which we can see how Yahuwah creates restoration in the relationships between people when perhaps there's a matter of distrust between people, how Yahuwah brings those people back to reconciliation. Okay, so I want to take a look at this passage in Numbers 3 before we go on. It says, Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Now look, I myself have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine. Because all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, I set apart to myself all the firstborn in Israel. So it appears, reading it in the English here, that it's saying, I've taken the Levites instead of the firstborn because all the firstborn are mine. It's kind of like, well, okay, so you're taking the Levites because all the firstborn are mine, or yours, so you're taking them all instead of the firstborn. There's something that doesn't really follow very well with that. Okay, so if we look at Blue Letter Bible, we can follow it through on there. This passage is actually excellent for seeing some of the flaws of Blue Letter Bible. When you're using Blue Letter Bible, you're only going to have the root word. As you can see there, it says root transliterated at the head of one of the columns. So it's the root. It's not the actual word that appears in the Hebrew passage. And there's also very often words that are in the Hebrew passage that aren't listed on Blue Letter Bible. So we start here in the Hebrew passage at the top. We've got this word, va'ani. And we can see here, it says, and I, behold, I have taken. And it says that all of that is the word lakach. And I is this word va'ani. That means and I. So, and I, behold, I have taken is not lakach. But you would think it was from reading that. So, and I is va'ani. The next word is hine. Okay, and that word means behold. So, and I, behold. And then we have the word, which there is lakach. lechakti. So it's a modified version of lechach. We are not just saying that word. We've got to be familiar with these things if we're going to use these tools to try to study the word of Elohim, because otherwise we get led astray by our own assumptions on things. So we've got, and I, behold, I have taken, is what lekachti means. Then we've got this word here, which is the aleph and the tav. It's pronounced et, and it points to the object of the sentence. The subject of the sentence is Yehovah and I. So that's the subject. Then we want to know what that subject is doing. And it says, I have taken. What is that subject taking? So then we have this, which is the object pointer. That points to what the subject is doing the verb to. And the object of that sentence is ha levi'im here. So Yehovah is the object, and he has done the verb take to the object. And again, the object is not there in Blue Letter Bible, that object pointer. And he's taken the Levites from among. And we've got the word, it says that the word is ben here, but it's actually b'nai there in the Hebrew, just like tabek is not tabek there, it's mituk. That's how it's written in the Hebrew. So you see there's so much more in this passage that just is not there for you to understand readily from Blue Letter Bible. A little bit of Hebrew comprehension is necessary to understand these things. And I don't understand Hebrew to a very advanced level at all, or even an intermediate level. I understand the very basics of Hebrew, and it allows me to navigate these things. Then it's the word Yisrael, so it's B'nai Yisrael. That's the children of Israel, or the sons of Israel. And then we've got another word which is not there on Blue Letter Bible, and this is the important word, because we can see here it says instead of all the firstborn, and the word that it says is instead of all the firstborn is bekor. Okay, bekor is firstborn. We've got this word before it in the Hebrew passage, and that word is tachat. Tachat. This is what tachat means. You'll notice that all of these, okay, these are not dependent on how the word is modified. These are all just possibilities of how you could translate it, and it depends on whether it's being used as a masculine noun, as an accusative adverb, as a preposition, as a conjunction, or in compounds with things, other words. And you can tell this from the context of what is written. There's no way to look at that word tachat and know which one of those is correct other than to read it. And we know that instead of doesn't fit. When we read that passage, he didn't take them instead of the firstborn. It's not like he ever said, okay, I'm going to have the firstborn to serve in the tabernacle, and then he took them all as his own in Egypt, and he was like, oh, no, we'll need to take someone else instead of them now, which is kind of what is implied. So instead of is not correct. What I would suggest is correct is a preposition, okay, under or beneath, idiomatically, at the foot of, and all of those things. So if we go back to the Hebrew passage, and I, behold, neither of which are there, I have taken the object, which is the Levites, from among the children of Israel, beneath. And then we've got another word which is not there in Blue Letter Bible. That word is kal, like when Charlie was looking at kal melaka. It's all work or every work. That's what that word kal means, every. Bechor, okay? Instead of all the firstborn is what it it says that Bekor means, but we can see that Tachat Kal Bekor is actually the full phrase. Then we've got Peteh, Rechem, which is the womb, among the children, and that is Mibnei, among the children, Yisrael. And then we've got a word there which is V'hayu. Okay, V'hayu. That word's not listed in Blue Letter Bible, and that word is actually the future tense of Haya. Okay, so it's shall be. Then we got this word, it's not listed, which is li. And that word means because or therefore, since. And then ha levim is what that says, the Levites. So we've got shall be, therefore, the Levites, which is very different from therefore the Levites shall be mine. Shall be, therefore, the Levites is what it actually says. So this passage could be understood to mean, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, now look, I myself have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, beneath every firstborn who opens the womb among the children of Israel. Therefore shall be the Levites, because all the firstborn are mine. Okay, so that's an alternative understanding. At the very least, I hope that allows you to see that Blue Letter Bible and trying to piece together translations on Blue Letter Bible is not always the wisest course of action, because you're missing a whole lot of information, and those explanations for each word means, what each word means, often include words that are in the Hebrew passage which are not translated for you. Now, Luke 2:22 to 23, we see, when the days of her cleansing, this is Miriam, according to the Torah of Moshe, were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to Yehovah. As it has been written in the Torah of Yehovah, every male who opens the womb shall be called set apart to Yehovah. So this is them presenting Yeshua as the firstborn, because that's what the Torah says. So they haven't been taken instead of the firstborn in their place, because we see the firstborn are still actually Yehovah's. What it could be saying is that the Levites are Yehovah's, and therefore, the firstborn are Yehovah's, and therefore the Levites are needed to present them to Yehovah. Therefore shall be the Levites, because the firstborn are mine. Not actually completely clear what is being said by that. What is clear is that it's not saying that the Levites were taken instead of the firstborn. No, that doesn't make any sense. Going to chapter 5, okay, we covered pretty much all of the first 4 chapters of Numbers in the first part. It says, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, command the children of Israel to send out of the camp everyone with Sara'at, everyone who has discharge, and whoever becomes defiled for a soul. Send out both male and female, send them outside the camp, so that they do not defile their camps in the midst of which I dwell. And the children of Israel did so to send them outside the camp, as Yehovah had spoken to Moshe, so the children of Israel did. Okay, so Yehovah is saying, okay, now is the point. He explained to Moshe and to Aaron what makes somebody clean and unclean, what the procedures are, what the priests are supposed to do. He explained that to Moshe and to Aaron. It's at this point that he says, now send them all out of the camps. He's arranging how everyone is to camp around him, and that the camps of the tribes are to be at a distance. And now we see you're to send anyone who is unclean outside of that camp. Do what I told you to do before, because otherwise they may defile my tabernacle which is in their midst. Verse 5 says, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, when a man or woman commits any sin that men commit in trespass against Yehovah, and that soul is guilty, then they shall confess their sin, which they have done, and he shall restore the guilt in its principal, plus 1/5 of it, and give it to whom he has been guilty. We saw this law being given in Leviticus 6, and this is actually to do with laws where a man sins against his neighbor. Okay, so he has to add 1/5. He pays back the principal, what's been taken, and he has to pay back a fifth extra, which is involved in restoration being made for reasons that we'll look at. But it's interesting how this is phrased here. Sins against your neighbor, but it's phrased as which he commits in trespass against Yehovah. It's an interesting thing. We see that sort of thought reflected throughout Scripture. In Genesis 20, verse 6, it says, Elohim said to him in a dream, this is Abimelech, yea, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, so I kept you from sinning against me. For this reason, I did not let you touch her. So this is Abraham's wife. Abimelech at this point is prevented from committing adultery with Abraham's wife. And Yehovah says, I kept you back from sinning against me. So adultery, I think we can all agree, would be sin against your neighbor. Don't covet what is your neighbor's. Don't sleep with your neighbor's wife. Okay, but Yehovah says that it's sin against him. Also in Genesis 39, this is Yosef with Potiphar's wife. No one is greater in this house than I, and he has not withheld whatever from me but you, because you are his wife. And how do I do this great evil and sin against Elohim? So Yosef recognizes that with this sin of adultery, because again, it's adultery here, it's a sin against Elohim. In 2 Samuel 12, verse 13, David said to Nathan, I have sinned against Yehovah. And Nathan said to David, also Yehovah has put away your sin, and you shall not die. So David here has committed adultery with Bathsheba, and he recognizes that this is a sin against Yehovah. Obviously, it's a sin against his neighbor, but he specifically calls it, as in these other cases of adultery, Elohim or Yosef call it sin against Yehovah. Psalm 51, 2-4 says, wash me completely from my guilt and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions, my sin is ever before me. Against you, you alone have I sinned and done evil in your eyes. So Psalm 51 is David's repentance for his adultery with Bathsheba. So again, all these examples that we have through Scripture happen to be examples of adultery. The major examples are all examples of adultery. It doesn't mean that it's only adultery which is sin against Yehovah. You know, we read in the New Testament that fornication should include things like watching pornography and lust for women. Okay, if you look at women and you're married, you commit adultery with them. Or you look at a married woman, you've committed adultery with them already in your heart, says Yeshua. Same with fornication. Same with lusting after women. You've committed fornication in your heart. Okay, and we're told that that is sin against your own body. And as your body is a part of the body of Messiah, it is to defile Messiah's body. That is also sin against Yehovah. Sins that we commit against our neighbors, as we're going to see, are sins against Yehovah himself. Leviticus 6, 1-5 says, and Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, when any soul sins and committed the trespass against Yehovah, okay, so these are all trespasses against Yehovah, and has lied to his neighbor about a deposit, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or shall extort from his neighbor, or has found what was lost and has lied concerning it, or did swear falsely, so that he sins in regard to any one of these that a man has done, or man does, then it shall be, when he sins and shall be guilty, that he shall return what he took by robbery, or what he has extorted, or the deposit which was deposited with him, or the lost item which he's found, or all that about which he swore falsely, he shall repay its total value, and he'll add 1/5 more to it and give it to whom it belongs on the day that he brings his guilt offering. So we begin to see the first kind of inklings here with the 1/5 added, that making restoration to Yahovah is more than just making somebody whole again, because there's more damage which has been done in that situation. Somebody has had their stuff stolen from them. That does psychological damage to somebody. It makes them feel more vulnerable, and it makes them feel as if they've been taken advantage of. So Yahovah's Torah, and we're going to see some examples of this, is about accommodating damages done that were due to transgressions, or in fact also due to perceived transgressions, where you think somebody has sinned against you. Yahovah provides means to make restoration and come to reconciliation in that circumstance. The 1/5 that is added, as well as, like paying back 4 times as much or 5 times as much, which are examples that we'll look at, it both serves to have the effect of being punitive against somebody. And what that means is that it's a punishment against them, essentially. So if you steal something from somebody, you don't just have to give them it back. You have to give them it back plus a load more, 1/5 or double, or 4 times or 5 times, just in different circumstances. And what that causes you to feel, the effect that that has on you, is you experience what that loss is like. Also, it serves the purpose that stoning people was supposed to serve, so that all Israel would hear and fear and not do so again. Because if you think, if I steal this, I'm going to have to pay back 4 times as much, and I don't have 4 times as much, so maybe I'm going to get sold into somebody's service, then you're going to think twice about doing it. It has that punitive effect which prevents people from committing crime. It's also compensatory in its effect. Compensate somebody for the loss that they've suffered. If you've had something stolen from you, then restoration involves more than just that thing being given back to you. You get more back, so you're in a better position than you were in before the theft had taken place. And all of these are part of how Yahovah brings restoration. In Exodus 22 verse 1, it says, when a man steals an ox or a sheep and shall slaughter it or sell it, he repays 5 cattle for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. So an ox is a beast of burden, something people use for their livelihoods. If you take something like that, you pay back 5 times as much. If it's part of their flock or one of their possessions, you pay back 4 times as much. But again, the person who is being compensated is put in a better position, so they're happier in terms of their material goods afterwards, because there has been an intangible damage done to that person when you steal from them. It's not just that they've been deprived of their goods. In Exodus 22, 7-9, it says, when a man gives silver or goods to his neighbor to guard, and it is stolen out of the man's house, if the thief is found, he repays double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought before Yahovah to see whether he's put his hand into his neighbor's goods. The presentations are having a bit of a fit with the different aspect ratios between the computers I use, cutting words off and doubling words and stuff. For every matter of transgression, for ox, for donkey, for sheep, for garment, or for whatever is lost, which another claims to be his, let the matter of them both come before Elohim, and whomever Elohim declares wrong repays double to his neighbor. So this is interesting. You give something to somebody to look after, and it's stolen, and the thief's found, the thief has to repay double back. But if the thief is not found, and you think, actually, that person has taken whatever it is, I don't believe them that a thief has taken it, what do you do in that circumstance? Because there is a certain damage which is done in that relationship, which cannot be undone. Restoration cannot be brought about because you just don't know whether or not they are actually the one who took your goods and then lied to you about it. So in this matter, they're able to come before Yahovah. I believe that this would have been a matter decided by the Urim and the Thummim by the priests. The Urim and Thummim, which were kept in the breastplate of Mishpatim. These are, of course, Yahovah's Mishpatim, which are being given here at Mount Sinai. It says here, for every matter of transgression, for ox, for donkey, for sheep, for garment, or whatever is lost which another claims to be his, let the matter of them both come before Elohim, and whomever Elohim declares wrong. So that could be the one who lent the goods and then claimed that the person to whom he had lent them had falsely taken those goods and falsely told him that they were stolen. He might have to pay double back to the guy that he is falsely accused. Okay, so if you falsely accuse somebody and you say, I don't believe you, you know that the Torah is going to involve you going before Elohim. And if you're the one that's found to be in the wrong concerning that, you repay back double to that other person. It brings about restoration in these situations. If they're found to have done it, then they have to repay double to you. But bear in mind, they would know that this is the law of the land. So it has an effect also. You're not going to say to somebody, I don't know what happened to the thing that you gave me in my charge. I think somebody stole it. You're not going to say that if somebody didn't steal it, because you're going to know what's going to happen next. You're going to go before Elohim, and it's going to be declared whether or not you have done it. So that law actually prevents people from doing that at all. But if a false accusation is brought, if someone thinks, no, you have done that, then the person falsely accusing will repay back double. Exodus 22:10-13 says, when a man gives to his neighbor a donkey or ox or sheep or any beast to look over or watch over, and it dies or is injured or is driven away while no one is looking, let an oath of Yahovah be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept that and does not repay. Because in this situation, if something's happened to something, okay, the owner of it has to accept the oath of the person who was watching over it. Okay, that they have not done anything to it because nobody was looking. So they say, I don't know what happened. I wasn't watching. There was nobody around. And the owner of it has to accept that if an oath of Yahovah has been sworn between the two people. This is useful in our relationships with people. If you think that somebody has done something and you're like, well, I don't know how I could ever know whether or not you've done that thing or not, then the way to bring restoration in that damaged relationship is to have them swear an oath to Yahovah. Obviously, this is only going to be something which is of effect to somebody who believes in Yahovah. But you can have somebody swear an oath before Yahovah, and then you are to accept whatever they have sworn, because it's a serious thing to break an oath to Yahovah. And certainly not something that anyone would think who's a believer that it was worth lying over. So Yahovah, in that situation, has given us a way of knowing for sure, or as sure as we can know. And in fact, if they have done wrong and sworn against Yahovah, then we know that there will be vengeance upon that person. So we are satisfied. We are made whole again, so to speak. But if it is indeed stolen from him, he repays to its owner. Okay, so in this situation, if they say, I don't know where it is, I wasn't looking, and somebody took it, they know that they have to swear an oath to Yahovah. So if it is stolen from him by that person, he has to repay. But then he's not going to swear an oath. If he comes and says, it was stolen, I wasn't looking, he has a choice then. Okay, he either swears an oath or he admits that he's stolen it himself. Okay, and if he's stolen it himself, he repays it to its owner. But again, since this law is a law that's in effect, that's never going to be a situation that comes about. These are how people are kept honest, first of all, but also how we can know in situations where there is distrust between two parties, how we can have restoration brought in that relationship again. Exodus 22:14-15 says, when a man borrows from his neighbor, if it's injured or dies, while the owner of it is not present, he shall certainly repay. Okay, so you borrow something from somebody, something happens to it, the owner's not there, you repay them. But if its owner was with it, he doesn't repay, okay, because its owner was there to look after the item. If it was hired, though, if you've lent it from somebody for money, then the person that you've lent it from is entitled to keep the money. Okay, you don't say, well, I lent it from you and then it broke, I want my money back. No, if it breaks, then the person that you have lent it from is entitled to that money. In verse 8 we see it says, but if the man has no relative to restore the guilt to, the guilt which is restored goes to Yahovah. So we can see from this that they would have to be repaid, that they would get a fifth extra. If they're not the one to be repaid, then it would be their relative. And if their relative is not repaid, then it's Yahovah. So there's no kind of getting out of it. The debt, so to speak, has to be paid to somebody. For the priest, in addition to the ram of the atonement with which atonement is made for him. So the priest would get the ram that was a part of this anyway, but the priest would also get that which is restored. Yahovah says, if you're going to give something to me, what you do is you give it to the person to whom I have said to give it. Like in the example of the tithe, he says, you're giving this to me, but I want you to give it to the Levites in Israel. With most things that were given to the priest, that is the person that he has elected for it to be given to, and he says essentially, this is what it is to give it to me. It's given to Yahovah, give it to the priest, because that's the person I've elected to receive it. And every contribution of all the Kodesh of the children of Israel, which they bring to the priest, becomes his, becomes the priest's. And every man's set apart, every man's Kodesh becomes his. Whatever any man gives the priest becomes his. Okay, so again, this is just Yahovah saying, you're giving it to me, but it becomes the priest's. Ezekiel 33:14-16 gives us a principle of justice that Yahovah has. He says, again, when I say to the wrong, you shall certainly die. If he turns from his sin and does right and righteousness, if the wrong restores the pledge, gives back what he has stolen, and walks in the laws of life without doing iniquity, he shall certainly live, he shall not die. None of his sins which he has committed shall be remembered against him. He has done right and righteousness, he shall certainly live. So this is the sort of thing that we're talking about here. Okay, we are to forgive as Yahovah forgives, and he's given us these means by which reconciliation can be made between two parties. And Yahovah says, look, if the wrong person does what's right and he restores the pledge and gives back what he's stolen, and maybe it's 4 times, 5 times, twice as much, add 1/5 to it, whatever is necessary, then he shall certainly live, he will not die. None of his sins which he has committed shall be remembered against him. And we are to be forgiving like Yahovah is forgiving. So in a situation, let's say somebody stole something from you, okay, and they do what is right and they repay back 4 times as much, perhaps, then it is not right to remember their sin against that person. These things are designed to bring about reconciliation in that situation. That restoration which is made between the two parties involves much more being given back, and all of those mechanisms that we looked at wherein trust can be re-established between the parties. So a grudge is not to be held from that point onwards because the person has done what is right in restoring those things. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any man's wife turns and has committed a trespass against him," another situation wherein harm has been done to a relationship, and a man has intercourse with her, and it is hidden from the eyes of her husband, and it is concealed that she has defiled herself, made herself unclean, and there was no witness against her, nor was she caught, and a spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he becomes jealous of his wife who has made herself unclean, or a spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he becomes jealous of his wife, although she has not defiled herself. So again, there's another situation here in which trust has been damaged between two parties. If you think that your wife or your husband has cheated on you, then that is going to affect that relationship going forward. What Yehovah does in his Torah is he gives a way for that situation to be brought back to restoration, for reconciliation to be made, so that the man knows that he can trust his wife. And if she has gone astray, then she will suffer punishment because of it. The person knows, as in all those other situations that I went through, that right and justice has been done. Think that your partner has cheated on you, you've got a way to find out for sure so that such a damaging situation is not allowed to continue. Then the man shall come with his wife to the priest, and he shall come with the korban for her. So when we see the word bo being used, it means to come. Sometimes you have the word karav used if you are to bring a korban, which is what the word means, is a means of drawing near to Yehovah. You can either come with that, which means that you're not drawing near to Yehovah with it, or you can karav or nagash with it, which means that you are drawing near to Yehovah with your korban, which is the means by which you draw near. Here, the man isn't going to draw near to Yehovah with this offering. He's going to draw near with the korban for her, for the wife. It's the wife who is going to use this korban to draw near. 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. He is not to pour oil on it, nor frankincense on it, because it is a mincha of jealousy, a mincha for remembering, for bringing iniquity to remembrance. So, because it's this mincha, which is this mincha of jealousy, mincha bringing iniquity to remembrance, you don't put oil and frankincense on it. Frankincense makes it smell in a certain way, and oil is, it's kind of like making it nicer, like dressing it up with these things. You don't do that. It's a functional offering. It's a mincha for jealousy. Just bring the ephah of barley flour. And the priest shall draw near to her, and shall make her stand in the presence of Yehovah. And the priest shall take the kadosh water in an earthen vessel, and take some of the dust that's on the floor of the dwelling place, and he puts it into the water. And the priest shall make the woman stand in the presence of Yehovah, and shall uncover the woman's head, and put the mincha for remembering in her hands, which is the mincha of jealousy, while the priest holds in his hands the bitter water that brings a curse. That word for curse is the one that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. It has all of the synonymous words around it. It's the word that's used of how Yehovah cursed the ground. Okay, and the curses that we receive for disobedience to the Torah are described as kalals, and we see that kalal is used interchangeably with ara, so it's the same as the curses which we receive for disobedience, but this is bitter water that brings a specific curse. The priest shall make her swear and say to the woman, if no man has lain with you, and if you have not turned aside to uncleanness under your husband's authority, be free from this bitter water that brings an ara. But if you have turned aside under your husband's authority, if you have made yourself unclean and some man other than your husband has lain with you, then the priest shall make the woman swear the oath, the shevuah of the Allah. Now, I'm not going to go into this particularly deeply, other than to say that shevuah and Allah are both words that have to do with, they can both be translated as curse, but they're kind of what comes from breaking an oath, or when you are adjured to give some kind of information, or, interestingly, when you break covenant, curse that comes from that. That's what these words Shavuah and Allah have to do with. And he shall say to the woman, Yahovah make you an Allah and a Shavuah among your people, when Yahovah makes your thigh waste away and your belly swell. And this water that causes the curse shall go into your inward parts, and make your belly swell and your thigh waste away, and the woman shall say, Amen, Amen. As I've covered recently, when you say Amen, it means that you are agreeing to something. Like when we say in Deuteronomy 27, where it says, the person who acts in this way shall be cursed. And all the people say Amen. That's why we shouldn't say Amen or Amen or Amen after our prayers. We should only say it when we're in agreement with somebody. When somebody else prays, we say Amen at the end of it. It's really been something I've been trying to cut out because it's just kind of one of those religious practices that people kind of involve in their worship of Yahovah and how they speak to Yahovah. So I've really been trying to cut it out. But the woman here is agreeing. Okay, this curse will come upon you. You'll be a Shavuah and an Allah among your people. And the woman says, Amen, Amen. And the priest shall write these curses in a book, curses which come from breaking covenant or perhaps a vow or being adjured to tell the truth in a situation like this one, and shall blot them out with the bitter water, and shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings the ara. And the water that brings the ara shall enter her to become bitter. So, verse 24, I want you to take note. The woman drinks the bitter water. Okay, the woman's drank the bitter water. And then it says in verse 25, and the priest shall take the mincha of jealousy from her hand, and shall wave the mincha in the presence of Yahovah, and draw near with it to the altar. And the priest shall take a hand filled with the mincha as its remembrance offering. So all grain offerings would have a part of it that the priest would take in his hand and put that on the altar, would katar it on the altar, offer it by fire on the altar to Yahovah, and that was called the remembrance portion. He katars it on the altar, and afterward make the woman drink the water. It's very interesting. Verse 24, the woman drinks the water, and the priest does this with the grain offering, and then afterward he makes the woman drink the water. Achar is a word which the prophets use to describe the time of the end, okay, the afterwards time, if you like. So what this points to is something fascinating, because the cup that the woman is to drink here, that brings the curse, that makes the belly distend and the thighs swell for the unfaithful wife. Okay, if we were made to drink of that cup, just in our natural state as sinners, then we would have a curse that came upon us. What Yeshua did is he drank that cup for us. Those effects, the belly distending, the thigh shriveling, are effects that can be seen in crucifixion. The effects of crucifixion can be seen in those things. He prays, doesn't he? Father, if you be willing, take this cup from me. He's going to drink from a cup. This is the cup that we hear about in the Torah. And he did indeed take that punishment that was due to us, or take that curse. He didn't take the punishment, as we know. He took that curse which comes from being unfaithful. It says that he, through that, forgave the sins that people committed in the old covenant, for example. So for all those people who were unfaithful to Yahovah, Yeshua drank of that cup. But this speaks of a second drinking of that same water, of that same cup. And that is something which we will have to do. Okay, we've entered now into covenant with Yahovah. We are betrothed to Yahovah. The scriptures tell us that when you're betrothed to somebody, they are your spouse, they are your husband or your wife when you've become betrothed to them. So from the point that we have salvation, which is to be washed clean of your sins, we know that Yeshua says that there were few in the church of Sardis who would walk with him in white because they were worthy and they had not defiled their clean garments that they had been given. So they will walk with him in white. Marriage talk that we have there. We will have to drink of the cup, so to speak. We will be judged by the actions that we have taken. And if after we've been sanctified, purified by Yeshua's blood, forgiven, if after that point we have been unfaithful to him, we've defiled our garments, so to speak, then the curse will come upon us. So there is this second drinking of the cup with us. What we see in the book of Exodus, it says, "For you do not bow yourselves to another god, for Yahovah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous ale." Exodus 34 is the passage of scripture wherein Yahovah reveals his name to Moshe. He's kind and he's compassionate, he's merciful, he's patient. He's kind to those who love him, but he will not forgive iniquity, or he will punish iniquity rather. And after this, it tells us that his name is jealous. He is a jealous ale. He's zealous for his bride. We're told in Psalm 106, 39 to 40, "So they became unclean by their own works and went whoring by their own deeds." So our works and our deeds are ways that we can defile ourselves, defile our garments, and that we can fornicate, or we can go whoring, commit adultery. Now that we're in covenant with Yahovah, be unfaithful to Yahovah through our works and through our deeds. And the wrath of Yahovah burned against his people. So there's that common belief that, when people talk about have you been saved, that is some kind of thing which happens and will affect ultimately how you are judged. What being saved is to be washed clean of your sin. You then have a choice of whether or not you're going to remain undefiled. People defile themselves with all sorts of sin, and not that I want to say they think that sin is okay. They obviously recognize that sin is wrong, but they think that the fact that they've been saved means that ultimately they're going to be okay. Perhaps they're going to be involved in taking drugs, watching pornography, looking and lusting after other women when they're married. Yahovah says his people have eyes full of adultery, but people think that they are okay because they have been saved, because Yeshua's done that for them and they were washed clean of their sins, that they don't have to walk correctly from that point onwards. But the woman drinks the cup twice, and we will be judged before Yeshua. The scriptures actually teach us of two different types of salvation, or two different, what theologians would call salvific events. Romans 13 says, "And do this, knowing the time that it is already the hour for us to wake up from our sleep. For now, our salvation is nearer than when we did believe." Obviously, when we believed in Yeshua, we were saved. Paul here talks of another salvation, which is yet future. He's saying our salvation's nearer than when we believed, because we don't have salvation at this point. We are saved of our sins, but salvation, if you like, is the completed thing. Verse 12 says, "The night is far advanced, the day has come near, so let us put off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light." Paul's always admonishing us to finish the race that you've started. Treat your body severely as an athlete who is competing treats his body severely. In 1 Thessalonians 5:8, it describes salvation as the expectation of salvation. That's what we all have. We've been cleansed of our sin, and we've all been given this golden opportunity now to walk and not continue to defile ourselves by the lusts of the flesh. In that, we have an expectation of salvation. In 1 Peter 1:3-9, it says, "Blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yeshua Messiah, who according to his great compassion has caused us to be reborn to a living expectation through the resurrection of Yeshua Messiah from the dead." Peter tells us that we're reborn according to the word of Elohim. Through this, we're reborn to an expectation through the resurrection of Yeshua Messiah from the dead. We have this expectation that we will be resurrected from the dead, but we must be found worthy of him at his coming. We must not be unfaithful. "To an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled and unfading, having been kept in the heavens for you, who are protected by the power of Elohim through belief or through faith, for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time." When Yeshua is revealed from heaven, that's when the salvation is revealed in the last time. We are kept by belief. We're kept through belief. But if we are unfaithful, how can we be kept by faith? Having faith isn't just a matter of believing that Elohim exists. Of course, we saw at the beginning of the Torah portion how the children of Israel were freed from Egypt, and they saw Elohim act so incredibly powerful, so as to part the sea for them, to give them victory over their enemies. They knew that he exists. They believe that he exists much more than, I would say, most people on the earth today know that he exists. They were right there with him in the situation. He was leading them across the planet. So they believed that he existed, but they did not have faith in him. We're told in Hebrews 13 that the word did not profit them because it was not mixed with faith. Hebrews 13, it's Hebrews 3 and 4, rather. That the gospel was preached to them, but it did not profit them because it was not mixed with faith. We are kept to this salvation by faith if we continue. But as Peter's going to continue and show us here, that faith has to be tested. And if we fail in those tests, then we will not be found worthy of him. We will be found to be that unfaithful bride, in which you exult, even though for a little while, if need be, for you have been grieved by manifold trials. These trials are ways that your faith is proved, your faith is tested, in order that the proving of your belief, much more precious than gold that perishes and proven by fire, might be found to result in praise, respect, esteem at the revelation of Yeshua Messiah. This will be this salvation, yet future, that we look to. If our faith is tested and it's proved, just like you'd prove metal by testing it in the fire, will be found to result in praise, respect, and esteem at his coming. We will be worthy to walk with him in white. Verse 8 says, whom having not seen you love, in whom you exult with unspeakable, not sure what that word is there, joy, yet not seeing, but believing, obtaining the goal of your belief, the salvation of your souls. Okay, so at his revelation from the heavens, that salvation which is to be revealed in the last time is the goal of our belief. Our belief has to be tested all that way through. And then the goal of that, the end of that, is the salvation of our souls. We've all been saved, but we will not all have this salvation of our souls at the end. Many are called, but few are chosen. Hebrews 3 verse 14 says, for we have become partakers of Messiah if we hold fast the beginning of our trust firm to the end. If it's not something which is guaranteed because you've been saved. Being saved is not how you get your place in the kingdom of heaven. Being saved is a great act of mercy and grace by the King. Gives you a second chance. In Ezekiel 33 verse 13, it says, when I say to the righteous that he shall live, and he is trusted in his righteousness and shall do unrighteousness, none of his righteousness shall be remembered. Because of his unrighteousness that he's done, he shall die. So when Yehovah tells us that you shall live, okay, you have been saved, and you trust in righteousnesses that you've done in the past. That's what you trust in. And you do unrighteousness. None of those righteousnesses are going to be remembered. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter if you repented. It doesn't matter if you accepted Yeshua. It doesn't matter if you were saved and washed clean of your sins. None of that is going to be remembered because of the unrighteousness that you've done. Okay, it's a bit like pressing the reset button. Okay, none of that's remembered. You've done unrighteousness. What you need to do now, you need to repent and start that walk again. I know that there will be many people who are watching this who are in that position. They've trusted in the fact that they were saved. They've trusted in the fact that they've done righteous works. Like the Israelites when they came with everything to offer for the tabernacle, which was great. Well done, guys. But then they failed. They did unrighteousness. And none of that stuff that they'd done before was remembered because of the unrighteousness which they had done. So I know that there will be people who are watching this who need a way out of that. Because where you end up with that is you shall certainly die. Because of that unrighteousness that you've done. You've defiled yourself in some way. The way out of it is to turn to Yehovah and leave those things behind you. If you still have things in your life that you haven't fully left behind, that you still entertain the idea of going back to, even if you don't want to, even if it upsets you or it distresses you that you keep turning back to those things, you still haven't excluded them from your life and actually turned from them. That's what you need to do. Verse 27 says, and when he has made her drink the water, then it shall be, if she's defiled herself and has committed the trespass against her husband, that the water that brings the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, and her belly and her thighs shall waste away, and the woman shall become a curse among her people. That word connected with breaking a vow, or being adjured to tell the truth, or breaking a covenant. This is the second time that the woman drinks of the water. Okay, and we will be judged before Yahovah. We will be brought into the presence of Yahovah and judged also. If we've committed the trespass against our husband, then it will not end well with us. If the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be clear, and she shall conceive children. Okay, we will, in the allegory, we will go and dwell in the kingdom. Verse 29 says, this is the Torah of jealousy, when a wife turns aside under her husband's authority and makes herself unclean. Or when a spirit of jealousy comes upon a man and he's jealous of his wife, then he shall make the woman stand before Yahovah and the priest to do to her all this Torah. And the man shall be clear from iniquity, but the woman shall bear her iniquity. Again, in this situation, whoever is in the right is proven to be in the right. Any distrust dissolves because it's been proven. And Yahovah makes pains to give us these things in his Torah. He understands human psychology. Okay, and these are the effects of these things. We know somebody who thinks their wife's cheated on them, and then it's proven that that hasn't happened. That then restores that trust that he has in his wife. Chapter 6 begins and says, and Yahovah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man or woman does separate, that word's palah, kind of speaks of things being so wondrous, palah, by making a vow of a Nazarite to be separate to Yahovah. So this is something that Yahovah's people could do. They were already set apart. They had already been kadashed and set apart. But what they could do is netzar themselves to Yahovah. And netzar, which is the verb, it's what you do. And netzer, which is the noun, the thing of separation, speaks of those things which are set apart. It's a word which is synonymous with holy, with kadash. So this person separates himself to Yahovah. He separates himself from wine and strong drink. He drinks neither vinegar of wine, nor vinegar of strong drink. Neither does he drink any grape juice, nor eat grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation, he does not eat whatever is made of the grapevine from seed to skin. All the days of the vow of his separation, a razor does not come upon his head until the days are completed for which he does separate himself to Yahovah. He is set apart, he is kadosh, he shall let the locks of his hair grow long. So these are people within Yahovah's people who further set themselves apart. That's what the word netzer means. Okay, netzer is the noun, it is separation. To natsar is to separate. That's the verb. You separate, and then what have you done? You've created a netzer, a separation. All the days of your separation are the days that you have taken this vow to Yahovah. You can see here at the bottom, properly, something set apart. It's a synonymous phrase with kadosh, to be set apart. Much like the Holy of Holies had been set apart from that which is set apart, the netzer, that separation, is set apart from which is already set apart. All the days of his separation, that's where the verb is used, to Yahovah, the days of his separating would probably be a better translation. He does not go near a dead body. He does not make himself unclean for his father or for his mother, for his brother or his sister when they die, because his separation to Elohim is on his head. all the days of his separation, he is set apart to Yahovah. Okay, and this is from people who are already set apart. What this brings me in mind of is Yahovah's people. As I mentioned, many are called, many are made holy, many are saved, but not all are chosen. Not all will have that salvation at the end. The goal of our belief is the salvation of our souls. So those people are set apart from Yahovah's set apart people. They set themselves apart in very much the same way that a Nazarite does. When anyone dies beside him in an instant, suddenly, and he has defiled the head of his separation, then he shall shave his head on the day of his cleansing. On the seventh day, he shaves it. And on the eighth day, he brings 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest to the door of the tent of meeting, and the priest shall prepare one as a sin offering, the other as a burnt offering, and shall make atonement for him, for he sinned by reason of the dead body, and he shall set apart his head on that day, and shall separate to Yahovah the days of his separation, and shall bring a male lamb a year old as a guilt offering, but the former days are not counted, because his separation was defiled. Okay, so it says here that he sinned by way of becoming unclean. We know that becoming unclean is not sin. The reason that he has sinned is because the Torah says that he cannot do those things. So by doing them, he's broken the Torah, and thereby it is sin. Becoming unclean isn't sin. If you become unclean when you've been told that you shall not in the Torah, then that is sin. But it's very interesting, okay? We're to be holy to Yahovah, we're to be set apart. Holiness is this form of separation, it's what it is to be set apart. If we are defiled in our separation, what do? We cleanse ourselves and we start again. Ultimately, when the days of our separation are complete, when Yeshua is revealed, we are cleansed from corruption, which will be the fulfillment of the Day of Atonement. That's perhaps a matter for another time. In Ezekiel 18:23-24, we see this principle. Have I any pleasure in the death of the wrong, declares the Master Yahovah? Is it not that he should turn from his ways and live? But when a righteous one turns away from his righteousness and does unrighteousness, according to all the abominations that the wrong one has done, shall he live? All his righteousness which he has done shall not be remembered. For his trespass which he committed, and for his sin which he's committed, for them he shall die. It's the same thing as is being said here in verse 12. The former days are not counted, because his separation was defiled. Our separation is defiled when we sin and we do unrighteousness. And as Yahovah says, all his righteousnesses that he's done shall not be remembered. The former days are not remembered. Matthew 13:40-41, we do see this time of the end when we will be fully cleansed, the Day of Atonement having been fulfilled in heaven. Matthew 13:40-41 says, As the darnel then is gathered in and burned in the fire, so it shall be at the end of this age. The Son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and those doing lawlessness. Okay, so they're gathering these things out of his kingdom. We're told the kingdom is like a dragnet. The good is separated from the bad. So within his kingdom, there's the good and the bad. Many are called, but few are chosen. Now, this verse is particularly interesting to me when I read it, because I remember praying to Yahovah. Anyone who's been watching the videos for a while will know that the way that I used to pray about things is I used to pray, and then I'd pick up the scriptures where I was at in the scriptures, and I'd continue reading, and answers were in those passages of scripture. It's not something that I recommend. I think that it is testing Yahovah to do that. I always pray before, please, if you do not wish to reveal anything, then don't. Not like I was demanding it of him. But anyway, I wouldn't recommend that people do that. That's not the point here. This passage of scripture was the next thing that I read after praying and asking about the defilement that's in the world, about having impure thoughts that you don't want to have, about the world around you, the temptations of the lusts of the flesh and all of those things, and just praying for understanding about how it will be in the kingdom. Are we still going to have all of these things, all of these, impure thoughts, whatever it is, things which intrude upon your desire to be holy? And this was the scripture. The Son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin. That's literally what that is translated to mean. It is in some translations. Other translations say stumbling blocks, which is very imprecise and could be interpreted in several different ways. But these are things which cause sin, and those doing lawlessness. People who continue to sin in his kingdom, and all those things which cause people to sin. Yahovah recognizes the responsibility of whether you're going to sin or not is yours. Okay, sin's desire is toward you, but you should master it. So you have that responsibility. But we also see that he holds the serpent responsible for causing Chava and Adam to sin. He holds the serpent responsible. The serpent has a degree of culpability in that situation. So although when there are causes of sin, we are responsible for not sinning and mastering the desires of sin, those things still have a part in causing people to sin. And the Son of Adam will send out his messengers, his angels, and they will gather all of these causes of sin and those doing lawlessness. We know what happens. Okay, the earth is cleansed with fire, the removal of that which can be shaken, so that that which is not shaken will remain. Okay, so at the end of the days of our separation, so to speak, okay, there will be this cleansing. We read what that looks like in the Torah of the Nazarite. This is the Torah of the Nazarite. When the days of his separation are completed, he is brought to the door of the tent of meeting, and he shall draw near with his means of drawing near to Yahovah, one male lamb a year old, a complete or a perfect one, a tamim one, as an olah, one ewe lamb a year old, perfect one, tamim one as a sin offering, one ram a perfect one as a shlamim, as an offering. The shlamim is a peace offering there. And a basket of unleavened bread, cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, and unleavened thin cakes anointed with oil, and their mincha with their drink offering. So what we have here, after the days of his separation, we have him bring one of every type of offering, apart from the guilt offering, apart from the asham, to make atonement for him. Okay, at the end of the days of our separation, when all of the causes of sin and all those doing lawlessness will be removed, that's the fulfillment of the day of atonement, when atonement is made for us. So it's fitting that all of these offerings by which atonement are made are offered at the end of the days of the separation of the Nazarite. And the priest shall draw near with them before Yahovah and prepare his chata'at and his olah. They shall prepare the ram as a zavach shlamim to Yahovah, together with the basket of unleavened bread. And the priest shall prepare the mincha and its drink offering, its nesek. And the Nazarite shall shave the head of his separation at the door of the tent of meeting, and shall take the hair from the head of his separation, and shall put it on the fire, which is under the sacrifice of the peace offering, the zavach hashlamim. And the priest shall take the boiled shoulder of the ram, one unleavened cake from the basket, mincha, one unleavened thin cake, put them on the hands of the Nazarite after he shaved his head of separation. And the priest shall wave them a wave offering in the presence of Yahovah. It is Kodesh for the priest beside the breast of the wave offering. So those things go to the priest, as we saw before. Besides the thigh of the contribution, also to the priest. And afterward, the Nazarite does drink wine. This is the Torah of the Nazarite who vows to Yahovah the means of drawing near for his separation. And beside that, whatever else his hand is able to provide, according to the vow which he takes, so he shall do according to the Torah of his separation. So among those who are called, we are to be separate from them. We separate ourselves out. We, Yah willing, will be those who are chosen. That's the way that you want to be separated out from the children of Israel. In Luke 13:28, though, Yeshua gives us a terrifying prospect, something that you want to avoid. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, this is among those in his kingdom. When you see Abraham, and Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and all the prophets in the kingdom of Elohim, and yourselves thrown outside. That's a way that you don't want to be separated. You're being separated from the wrong group within his kingdom at this point. So live out the days of your separation from Yahovah, remembering that you will be held to account in the end. And having been saved, having been set apart, having been called is not the end of it. You must separate yourself further from that. You must look forward to that salvation which is to come. Separate yourself from all of the uncleanness of the world. Do not defile yourself, because certain people within his kingdom are not going to be there. They're the ones that are going to be weeping and gnashing their teeth, and they're the ones that you want to separate yourself up from. Okay, so the Numbers chapter 7 is pretty much all just the offerings that the various leaders of the tribes brought for the dedication of the Mishkan. So I've not really covered that apart from the wagons which they all brought. I'm going to end looking at the Aaronic blessing, because it's interesting, and it leads us into looking at what it is to take the mark of the beast, his name, or the number of his name. So verse 22 says, and Yahovah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, this is how you bless the children of Israel. Say to them, Yahovah bless you and keep you. Yahovah makes his face shine upon you, make his face shine upon you, and show favor or grace to you. Yahovah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And all of those are elements of his name, how Yahovah is and what Yahovah does. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. So this is how the priests are to put Yahovah's name on Israel. Revelation 13:16-17 says, and he causes all, both small and great, and rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark upon their right hand or upon their foreheads, that no one should be able to buy or sell except he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Okay, so in order to buy or sell, you're going to need one of three things. You're either going to need the number of his name, or his mark. Revelation 13 is 18 verses long. So verse 17 speaks of no one's able to buy or sell except he that has the mark or the name of the beast, the number of his name. And we have verse 18, which is, here is wisdom. This is he who calculates the number of his name. The very next verse is Revelation 14, verse 1. And I looked and saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written upon their foreheads. Okay, so you see the contrast which is being drawn here between these two things. Those who have the mark of the beast on their hand, on their forehead, or his name, or the number of his name, and those who have the name of the Father written upon their foreheads. And 144,000 are obviously those who are protected during this time. This is the word which is translated as beast. You might have seen I put it in blue as therion. Okay, therion is just the word that is used to say beast. If I wanted to talk of a wild animal, I would talk of a therion, like the beasts on the earth, or the therions on the earth. But when we see these therions, we see that they are actually referred to in prophecy. When we see a therion or a wild animal or a beast in prophecy, it has a different meaning and it tells us something different. So this is the Septuagint. Okay, so obviously the New Testament's written in Greek. We would be looking for this term, since it is a general term. It's not a specific term. It's not a technical term. It's just a term for wild animal or wild beast. Daniel 7:3-7 says, and there came up 4 great beasts, 4 great therions out of the sea, differing from one another. If you read Revelation 13, you'll know that the first beast comes up out of the sea also. So these are 4 great therions, 4 great beasts that come up out of the sea. The word in Hebrew just means beast, just as the Greek word just means beast. So going to the Septuagint just shows the linkage with Revelation. It's the same word. It's just a word that means a beast or a wild animal. The first of these 4 great beasts that came out of the sea was as a lioness, and her wings as an eagle's wings. I beheld until her wings were plucked, and she was lifted off from the earth, and she stood on human feet, and a man's heart was given to her. And behold, a second therion, like a bear, and it supported itself on one side, and there were 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, arise, devour much flesh. After this one I looked, and behold, another therion, as a leopard. And it had 4 wings of a bird upon it, and the therion had 4 heads, and power was given to it. After this one I looked, and behold, a 4th therion, dreadful, terrible, exceedingly strong, and its teeth were of iron, devouring and crushing to atoms, and it trampled the remainder with its feet. And it was altogether different from the therion that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So the imagery which is used in prophecy is of these things which come up, and they're described as beasts, and they're animals essentially. And it's idiomatic language, or it's metaphorical imagery that we have given here. And these beasts represent certain things, and Daniel gives us more information about what each of these things are. Okay, these beasts are kingdoms. The first beast, the lioness with the wings, that is the kingdom of Babylon. Then we have the kingdom which comes after it, which is the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Then we have the kingdom of Greece, and then we have Rome. They are the 4 beasts that you see in Daniel 7. These things are explained throughout the rest of Daniel and the rest of the images of various beasts that he sees. We have this narrative told to us of these 4 kingdoms on the earth, from Babel, which is the kingdom which was on the earth at the time when Daniel was around, and King Nebuchadnezzar. So a beast is a kingdom. It represents a kingdom. But what we're going to see as we go through is it also represents the thing, the spiritual power behind that kingdom. The beasts are going to have horns. You'll see that it's got 10 horns on it here. I'm going to tell you these things plainly now, and then I'm going to show you these things in Scripture. So the beasts of the kingdoms, the horns on the beasts, they are human rulers. They are human people. The beast itself is the spiritual entity that is behind the kingdom. And as a whole, the beast and its horns is the kingdom. We see in Daniel 10:12-13, it says, "And he said to me, do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before Elohim, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. But the prince of Persia withstood me 21 days, and see, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I have been left alone there with the kings of Persia." So here we get an insight into the spirit realm. This is the angel Gabriel. He comes to Daniel and he says, Michael, one of the chief princes, uses the word princes, help me to fight against the prince of the kingdom of Persia. Okay, so this is a spiritual entity which is doing battle with Michael and Gabriel. For I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. Kings, again, are spiritual entities. You get human kings and you get spiritual kings. The ones that Gabriel is fighting against here are spiritual kings. So we should expect, and we see elsewhere in the book of Daniel, that we will have spiritual princes and spiritual kings. Okay? Daniel 10:20-21 says, "And he said, do you know why I have come to you? And now I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I have left, see, the prince of Greece shall come." Remember those 4 kingdoms which come up on the earth, told by Daniel. It's the Babylonians, then the Medes and the Persians. Then we have the Greeks, and then we have the kingdom of Rome is the final kingdom. Okay, and he's talking here, "I return to fight with the prince of Persia, and see, the prince of Greece shall come." Spiritual entities. "But let me declare to you what is written in the scripture of truth, and there is no one supporting me against these except Michael, your prince." So again, spiritual entity. Michael, the chief archangel, he is a prince, just like the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece, or the prince of Grecia. In Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, in the Septuagint, it's actually different in the Masoretic text. Instead of according to the numbers of the angels of God, it says according to the number of the children of Israel, which just doesn't make any sense. But the original text that the Septuagint was translated from said something different. It says, "When the Most High divided the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the nations according to the number of the angels of God." And we have these spiritual entities over particular regions. We've got the Prince of Persia involved with the kingdom of Persia, and that is the dominion of the Prince of Persia. We've got the Prince of Greece mentioned as well. We've also got kings mentioned, the kings of the Medes and the Persians, the king of Greece. All of these are mentioned in the context of spiritual entities. And we see that Yahovah divided the nations according to the number of the angels. Ephesians 6 verse 12 says, "Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies." So our fight is not with flesh and blood human beings. Our fight is with what is behind them. It is on a spiritual level. When you're talking about a kingdom, it doesn't matter who's in charge of it. That would be a horn on the beast, the human that's in charge. But it's the beast, the spiritual entity. These are the things that we see fighting against each other. In fact, when Greece defeats the Medes and the Persians, we see Daniel describe that as the beast, the he-goat, charging into the ram, which is the kings of the Medes and Persians. So these beasts are what are in conflict with each other. They have horns, but the horns are borne about on the beast. It's what's behind the kingdom spiritually, which is important. In Daniel 8:4-5, it says, "And I saw the ram butting westward and northward and southward, and no beast could stand before him." Same word used there, it's just a beast, a wild animal. These are the spiritual entities. So no beast could stand before this ram. No beast was able to stand before him. There was none that could deliver out of his hand, and he did according to his will and became great. And I was considering, and behold, a he-goat came from the southwest on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the earth, and the goat had a horn between his eyes. So remember what I was explaining, that the horns are the physical rulers. The beasts are the spiritual entities. The beasts are the kingdoms and the spiritual entities, and on their heads they have these horns. Okay, so we're going to see in Daniel 8 how these horns are described. Daniel 8:20-21. The ram which you saw, which is described as a therion, as a beast, having two horns, are the kings of the Medes and Persians. So the beast, it says here, this beast are the kings of the Medes and Persians. In Hebrew, you have when you have something which is, there's a multiple of it, it's in the plural, the words around it are going to be pluralized too. So instead of saying, the ram which you saw is the king of Media and the king of Persia, it says the ram are the kings of Media and Persia, because Media and Persia, the kings, that's a plural thing, so the word are is used instead of the word is. Okay, it's something that's there in the Hebrew which points us to a great discovery here. So the ram are the kings of Media and Persia. So these are the spiritual entities. The ram, the beast, spiritual entity, and what it is the spiritual entities, the kings of Media and Persia. This beast as a whole is the spiritual entities. We saw before the prince of Persia. Here we see the kings of Persia, the kings of Media, the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Then it tells us about this he-goat, which Daniel sees charging towards it. It says the male goat is the king of Greece. We saw before the prince of Greece. This beast is the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes is the first king. Okay, so we've got two kings that are mentioned there. We've got the king of Grecia, like the prince of Grecia, which is a spiritual entity that Michael and Gabriel are involved in fighting against. And on the head of this beast which was seen, which is the king of Greece, is the first king. So that's two kings. You've got the spiritual kings and you've got the human kings. Daniel 7 verse 24 says the 10 horns are 10 kings from this kingdom. This is the fourth terrible beast which Daniel sees coming up. So we've got 10 kings. These are 10 human rulers that are going to rule this kingdom. But they're all born about on the beast, which is the spiritual entity behind the kingdom. Jeremiah 48:25 says, the horn of Moab has been cut off and his arm has been broken. Speaking of the physical ruler, the human ruler of Moab. Now, Daniel goes into a great deal of history that has happened and actually come to be on the earth. Like the idea that the he-goat will come from the southwest and he'll butt into the ram, which is the kings of Media and Persia. That actually happened in history. Greece came from the southwest and engaged with the Medes and the Persians. There's a whole lot more that's in the book of Daniel. I'm not going to go through that because my purpose in this teaching is to show what the mark of the beast is. I want us to understand what the beast is without going into all detail about all beasts in all scripture and how all prophecy was fulfilled. If people are interested in that sort of depth of teaching, I would recommend this teaching, Daniel and Revelation Decoded, because I go through all these horns that come up, the little horn, how it comes up among 3 other horns and how it displaces them, and how there's 10 horns and this happens to this one, this happens to that one, and then the horns on the king of Grecia, all of those things. How 4 horns came up on the king of Grecia, just like we see happening in history. So if you want to know the history and how all of that maps out with beasts and horns, and you're interested in that aspect of what I'm saying, I recommend this teaching. It goes into a lot of depth on that. We also see beasts in the throne room in heaven. Revelation 4:6-7 says, "And before the throne was a sea of glass like crystals, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures." It says in this translation. In the King James Version, it just says beasts, because this word zoon, along with the word therion, both refer to beasts. They've both got slightly different emphasis about what they're saying about the beasts, but they both mean beast. But I'll show you that. Covered with eyes in the front and in the back. And the first living creature was like a lion, the second living creature like a calf, the third living creature had a face like a man, fourth living creature was like a flying, eagle. So again, much like the beasts of the earth, okay, those spiritual entities on the earth are all seen in these sorts of guises. Daniel saw the 4 beasts. He said the first one was like a lioness with wings, for example. This is the Thayer's Greek lexicon entry for the word zoon. You see the word zoon here. Again, an animal, brute, beast, same thing as therion means. It says here a living being, because that's actually more accurate, as Thayer's goes on to discuss. It says here zoon differs from therion. It says that they're synonyms. It says zoon differs from therion, at least etymologically. That means where that word came from linguistically. So the word zoon, it says here, in giving prominence to the vital element, vitality, life. So what is being emphasized about the beasts that are in heaven is their vitality or their life, while therion emphasizes the bestial element. So when we think of the beasts on the earth and we use a word that means beast, what's emphasized by that word is their bestial element. And that's quite fitting, because they're the evil powers on the earth, the world rulers of darkness, so to speak. What's emphasized about the beasts in heaven when we call them beasts is their vitality and their life, which again is fitting for the beasts in heaven. But they're the same. Okay, we see them, they look the same, but they are referred to, one emphasizing vitality, one emphasizing their bestial nature, but both of the words are synonymous and they mean beast. That's why the King James translates them both as beast. Revelation 13:11-18 then says, "And I saw another beast, another therion, coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon." So the 2 horns are humans on the earth, human rulers, human leaders, and this beast is this spiritual entity. This beast has 2 horns like a lamb. Okay, so they appear like a lamb, obviously associated with Yeshua, but spoke like a dragon. And what we're going to go on to learn in Revelation is that this second beast is the false prophet. Looks like a lamb, speaks like a dragon. Its 2 horns, the 2 things that you're going to actually see on the earth, look like a lamb, but speak like a dragon, and this is the false prophet. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. That's something that's been mentioned previously. So he causes everyone on the earth, those who dwell in it, to worship the first beast. So when we are looking for the false prophet, we should be looking that they are causing those people on the earth to worship something. And what's going to be behind that thing is this first beast. I go into more detail about this in the teaching that I put up, but this understanding is sufficient for now. He does great signs so that he makes fire come down from the heaven on the earth before men. Okay, so that's going to be something that we're going to recognize when we see it. When this beast, who brings about this mark of the beast, comes about, he's going to do great signs, even making fire come down from heaven. It's not going to be something that we're going to easily miss here. It says he leads astray those dwelling on the earth because of those signs. So when we're looking for a false prophet, we're going to be looking for two human counterparts of the false prophet, and they're going to be leading people astray because of the signs, not for any other reason. They lead them astray because of the signs, including the fire coming down from heaven. So when we who are equipped with the word of Elohim see these things happening on the earth, if indeed it is us in the last generation, then we will recognize what this is and what we can expect from it, which he was given to do before the beast, the first beast, saying to those dwelling on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword yet lived. So what we're going to see is people on the earth going to be led astray because of these signs, fire coming down from the earth. They're going to be told to make an image to the beast. This word image is an icon. An icon is like a statue. It's when we talk of people worshipping images that are statues. That's the word that is used there. It's an icon. It's like a giant statue, a giant carved image. That's what the image of the beast is, the icon. So he tells the people on the earth, go and make an icon. So he's deceiving them by the signs, and then he tells them to make an icon. This is what we are waiting for. Who was wounded by the sword yet lived. And there was given to him to give a spirit to the icon of the beast, that the icon of the beast should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship the image of the beast. So this is something very particular that we're looking for here. Deceive the people. When the people are deceived, tell them to build an icon. When they build the icon, give a spirit to the icon so that it should speak and so that it should cause to be killed as many as would not worship it. That's very specific. We don't have anything, and people will take many things in the world and they'll try to shoehorn them into the prophecies, and they'll say, well, look, this fulfills this part of it, or it fulfills that part of it. But what we're looking for is something that fulfills all of this. So we want an icon which is caused to speak by being given a spirit and causes as many as would not worship it to be killed. Okay, so worship the icon, otherwise you'll be killed. And it will speak because it's been given a spirit. And it's been made by the people of the earth when they've been told to make it, when they've been led astray with great signs, including fire coming down from heaven. And he causes all, both small and great, and rich and poor, and free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or upon their foreheads. It's part of the sequence of events. Okay? So these people are all led astray through these signs. There's this icon of the beast which is speaking and causing people who won't worship it to be killed. Then he causes these people to be given a mark on their right hands on their foreheads. All people, everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, everyone is given this mark, that no one should be able to buy or sell except he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of the name. 3 things which you can have to buy or sell. It's not just the mark of the beast that you've got to have. So when we're looking for things that could be the mark of the beast, we've got to look for things that fit into what is said here. Everyone has it. Everyone on the earth, that they've been deceived by these great signs and wonders, and that they can either have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, not just this mark. Here is the wisdom. He who has understanding, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, I know there's people who believe that the symbol is the symbol that people in Islam have and all of that sort of stuff. That's fine. Maybe that's true. I'm not going to go into teaching about whether or not that is a valid interpretation, but it doesn't matter, because you can either have that, or you can have the name of the beast, or you can have the mark of the beast to buy or sell. Revelation 19:19-20 reveals who this second beast is. We're all familiar with the false prophet. So this second beast, we're told, deceives the people on the earth. You can see in verse 13 and 14, he leads astray those dwelling on the earth because of those signs, which he was being given to do before the beast, saying to those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast. Okay? The next time we hear this description, it says, I saw the beast, that's the first beast, and the kings of the earth. So we should have more understanding about what this is, and their armies gathered together to him, to fight, him who sat on the horse and his army. And the beast was seized, and with him was the false prophet who works signs in his presence. That's what we're told the second beast does, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. That's the second beast, which is why when he's referred to here, it says you've got the beast and the false prophet. That's the first beast and the second beast. We know who the false prophet is. He's the one who led astray the people by the signs that he did in the presence of the first beast, those who received the mark of the beast, those who worshipped his image. So he's going to lead them astray by signs. He's going to cause them to build an image. The image is going to be given a spirit so that it should speak and cause as many as will not worship it to be killed. And the false prophet is going to cause them to receive a mark also. They're all the things that we're looking for in this scenario. These are the things which must be present. Daniel 3:1-6 shows us a picture in Scripture, a prophetic picture of what we can expect in the end times. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an icon of gold. Okay, this is from the ISR version, but I'm highlighting that in the Septuagint version, it uses the word icon, because that's what an icon is. It's like a huge graven image, whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babel. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the viceroys, the nobles, the governors, the councillors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the icon which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, the councillors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the icon that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the icon that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald loudly proclaimed, "To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, languages, all the people of the earth, that as soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments, you shall fall down and do obeisance to the gold icon the King Nebuchadnezzar has set up." So just as we see the plagues in Exodus amplified in Revelation, we see this amplified in Revelation as well. It's not a herald proclaiming that anybody who will not worship the image will be killed. It's actually the image itself. The image is given spirit so that it should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship it. So anybody who will not fall down and do obeisance to the image shall be killed. Whoever does not fall down and do obeisance is immediately thrown into the midst of a burning furnace of fire. They'll be killed. So this herald proclaims what the image will proclaim in the end times. So this is what we are looking for when we're talking about the false prophet and his mark. The false prophet, who is the second beast, and his mark. He has two horns like a lamb and speaks like a dragon. Okay, so he's a false prophet. This is the definition of a false prophet, if you wanted to sum that up. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, does great signs. He even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth before men, leads astray those dwelling on the earth because of those signs. It's nothing else. It's because of those signs. That's how everyone is led astray and caused to worship the first beast. Says to those dwelling on the earth to make an image, an icon to the first beast. Gives a spirit to the icon of the beast, that the icon of the beast should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship the icon of the beast. These are so specific. This is not going to take us by surprise. Causes all to be given a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, that no one should be able to buy or sell except he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Which brings me to one of the most popular things that people have thought in the past may be the mark of the beast. The reason that they've thought that this may be the mark of the beast is because of what we have here. These two lines in the middle, and these two lines in the middle, when they are computed by a computer, work out to sixes. That's how the computer recognizes those two lines as sixes. So they say you need the barcode to buy or sell. Not true. You can buy or sell without a barcode. You also don't get a barcode on your hand or on your forehead. Okay? Now, if you think, as we'll go on to see what the hand and the forehead may represent, then you could perhaps say that the barcode is on your hand or on your forehead. But this doesn't contain 666. That's false. Okay? The way that the computer reads this is 9687654632100968. And those other lines as well, they're read as numbers in between. So it doesn't have 666 in. It has 3 sixes in, but would that mean that any number with 3 sixes in could be the mark of the beast, or could be the number of his name? No, it's just something that kind of caught people's eye about this. Those people who knew about it said, well, these 3 lines, equidistant lines in the barcode, are sixes. But we've got to be incredibly precise in what we're saying. Okay, we don't see people on the earth being led astray by great signs and wonders like fire coming down from heaven. You can buy and sell without the barcode. Okay, it's not the barcode or the number of his name. People are saying, well, the number of his name's in the barcode. So that's kind of like both of them are the same thing. Or the name of the beast. Where's the name of the beast? Or none of this is explained. What people tend to do is they look at the world around them and they try to see in the world around them things from the end times, which is fine because we're to be watchful and we are to take in those things that are in the world around us and we're to be watchful. But the scripture is incredibly clear and precise in the description of what those things look like. It's not in Yehovah's nature to have us taken by surprise or to all be using the mark of the beast without knowing it. Yeah, the whole point in taking the mark of the beast is it's an exercise of your will. And we'll come to that and I'll show you that. But it's an exercise of your will that you take it. And it's actually in defiance to Yahovah. It's choosing to take this. Yahovah is not just saying, okay, anybody who uses a barcode, you're using the mark of the beast. People have also speculated that cryptocurrency might be the mark of the beast. And again, it's on the most tentative, slim interpretation of those prophecies that maybe one day you won't be able to buy anything without cryptocurrency. I don't believe that. I think that there are many ways that you could show that that's extremely unlikely to be true. But even if it was true, that doesn't make it a candidate for being the mark of the beast, for it being the false prophet's mark, because there's so much other stuff which has to be in place around it. Okay, so people look at cryptocurrency, they say maybe one day you won't be able to buy or sell without it. That's fine. It says that you will be able to buy or sell if you've got the number of his name or the mark of the beast. So this is something that is a lot more involved. Whatever is put in place on the earth, having these people having been led astray by these signs and wonders, it's not cryptocurrency. Revelation 17 verse 5 shows us the whore. It says that upon the whore's forehead was a name written. Now this idea of having a name written on your head, like those who take the mark of the beast, his name and the number of his name, right hands and foreheads, are contrasted with those who have the name of the Father on their forehead. The idea of having someone's name on your forehead it's kind of like what defines you, whose you are. The name that's written on your forehead is kind of who you're declaring yourself to be, so to speak. I've thought in the past, your hand represents what you do, your forehead represents what you think, but that's not true. Scripture teaches us that thoughts come from the heart, they don't come from the brain. That's kind of a scientific understanding that we have. So that idea that the forehead's what you think isn't actually what Scripture would teach. If it was on your heart, then that would be what you think, the thoughts and intents of the heart, etc. This whore has this name on her forehead. This is who she is. Bavel, the great, the mother of whores and the abominations of the earth. That's a description of her. Okay, that's who she is. The name, again, is not an appellation. It's not a label given to somebody that you have on the head. Let's say the beast was called Clive. You're not going to have Clive written on your head. Like you're not going to have Yahovah written on your head if you're one of the 144,000. To have his name written on your forehead is who you are, and that is what you are about. We see the same with the whore who has this name written on her forehead. Your name is your character, your reputation, your fame. In Revelation 22 verse 4, it says, they shall see his face and his name upon their foreheads. Okay, so are you going to have the name of the beast, or are you going to have the Father's name on your forehead? This is what's going to make the difference here. Deuteronomy 28, 9-10 says, Yahovah does establish you as a set-apart people to himself. He has sworn to you, if you guard the commands of Yahovah your Elohim and walk in his ways, all the peoples of the earth shall see that the name of Yahovah is called upon you. You want to have his name on your forehead? For everyone to be able to see that his name is called upon you? Guard his commandments, walk in his ways, have his name on your forehead. Deuteronomy 6, 4-8 says, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahovah our Elohim, Yahovah is one. And you shall love Yahovah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. Not literally, you're not going to have a load of words poking out your heart, but they'll be in your heart, and we can understand what is meant by that. You shall impress them on your children and speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. That's what it is to have his name on your forehead, if you like, as well. Okay, it's who you are. It's what you're about, what you do as you're going about the place. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And this word frontlets is something that goes on your forehead. We can see here it is the word tofafa. Okay, tofafa. If we look at the bottom here, a fillet for the forehead. So you've got his sign. Doing his words is a sign on your hand and on your forehead. Just like guarding his commands is how people will see the name of Yahovah called upon you, to have his name on your forehead. This is the word charagma. Charagma is the word mark in Revelation, where it talks of the mark of the beast. Okay, it can be a stamp or an imprinted mark. Something which is carved, a sculpture, a graven work of idolatrous images, which is interesting. Okay, so it can be something engraved, it can be something imprinted, and that's what you're going to have on your hand or on your forehead. This is interesting to me when I consider in Exodus 39, 30 to 31, and they made the plate of the set apart sign of dedication of clean gold and wrote on it an inscription like the engraving of a signet. And what's engraved there is set apartness to Yahovah. And they put on it a blue cord and they fasten it above on the turban. That's the gold plate which goes on the high priest's forehead. So here we have an engraving, like that word charagma. This would be a charagma on the forehead of the high priest. So it could be a literal mark or something which is engraved that people have on their foreheads. Much more likely, what we read in Scripture is it's what you're about and what you do. Okay, that's overwhelmingly what we see when we see something on someone's forehead. But I can't deny that you do see something physical on the high priest's forehead, and that is a charagma. That is a mark. We're to have, doing his words is to be a sign on our hands and on our foreheads. And that's obviously the metaphorical usage of it. And the word for sign that is used there is auth. Okay, look at one of the meanings of auth. Mark. Okay, an auth is a sign. It is a mark. So we are to have Yahovah's mark on our hands and on our foreheads. Doing his words is how we have his auth on our hands and on our foreheads. Doing his commands is how people will see that the name of Yahovah is called upon us. Okay, so the people in Revelation take a mark on their hands, or an auth on their hands. If you're writing it in Hebrew, you could use this word auth to describe the exact same thing. And they will have his name on them too. So doing the Father's commands is to have his mark on your hand and forehead and his name called upon you. And the opposite is true for the beast. You will be worshipping the image of the beast. He's going to come and he's going to deceive everybody on the earth so that they make an image to this spiritual entity. They worship this spiritual entity. He's going to lead them all astray by signs and wonders. And then he's going to give them a mark and cause them all to worship this beast, this first beast. In these times, people are going to have the word of Elohim. I'm going to show you that because people will say, well, maybe they won't have the word of Elohim. So when all these things happen, maybe nobody's going to have the word to know that these things are written of in the scriptures. But just like in Exodus, when you have the people being given a chance, the people of Egypt, to do the word of Yahovah, when it comes to the hail raining down, you're going to have the same thing in the end times. You're going to have all of this which is directly prophesied in Revelation. And you're going to have people being given the choice. Are you going to not worship the image of the beast and therefore give up your life. Remember, the image of the beast causes those who will not worship it to be killed. Or are you going to stand on the word of Elohim? So people will be given a choice, and they're going to have to make the decision, will they worship the beast? Contrary to what the scriptures say. Are they going to take that mark on their hand and on their forehead in the name of the beast and be involved in worshipping the image? Or are they going to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Hopefully, we will be among the 144,000 and we will be protected from those things. But perhaps it will be required of us also. But certainly the people who are around then will have the choice of whether or not they're going to be killed for the testimony of Yeshua and because of the word of Elohim. Proverbs 3 verse 3 says, "Let not kindness and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Engrave them on the tablet of your heart." Okay, the charagma is an engraving, remember. So this, you could say, is to take the charagma of Yehovah on your heart. Okay, you obviously don't physically engrave it on your heart. That wouldn't be very healthy. You don't physically bind them around your neck. But this is Yehovah's name, kindness and truth. Bind them around your neck and engrave them on your heart. Take his mark. Have his name called upon you. If you're in a situation where you're being asked to kneel down and worship before the icon of the beast, do not do that. Do not take the mark of the beast. Do not take the beast's name. Psalm 26, 9-10 says, "Do not gather my soul together with sinners, nor my life with bloodthirsty men, in whose hands is a plot, and their right hand is filled with bribes." Okay, so what is in your right hand? Your hands speak of your works. We see that throughout the scriptures. Your right hand, what is at your right hand is what is important to you. Your right hand is a place of honor. Okay, so for these people, their works, what they do is to take bribes. Bribes are in their right hand. Okay, we know to do Yehovah's commands is to have that as a sign upon our hands, our works. Matthew 5 verse 30, Yeshua says, "If your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away from you, for it is better for you that one of your members perish than for your entire body to be thrown into Gehenna." And that's going to be true when people are given the opportunity, whether they will worship the image of the beast, whether they'll take his mark on their right hand, or whether they will give their lives. Because remember, the icon of the beast speaks and causes as many as will not worship the image of the beast to be killed. When it comes to taking that mark, when it comes to worshipping the icon and worshipping the beast, it's better for you that you were to cut off your right hand and throw it far from you. Psalm 16, 8-9 says, "I have set Yehovah always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I am not shaken. Therefore my heart was glad, and my esteem rejoices. My flesh also dwells in safety." We don't need to worry that we're going to accidentally take the mark of the beast. Yehovah is not trying to fool his people, and he doesn't punish people who are fooled into doing something. We know that Yehovah's name is to punish those who do iniquity, those who choose to walk away from him. That's his name. We can trust in who he is. We can trust that if Yehovah is at our right hand, we are going to be safe. We'll be safe from the mark of the beast if we make Yehovah our right hand, because we're not going to be doing any of those things, even on pain of death. Colossians 3 verse 17 says, "Whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Master Yeshua, giving thanks to Elohim the Father through him." Have his name written on your forehead. Have that as your right hand and as frontlets between your eyes. Revelation 14, 9-12 says, And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast or his icon and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his right hand, upon his hand rather, he also shall drink the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tormented with fire and sulfur before the set apart messengers and before the Lamb. The smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, those worshipping the beast and his image. Also, if anyone receives the mark of his name. Here is the endurance of the set apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yeshua. That's the endurance of the set apart ones. Those who will not worship the beast. They will not take his name on their hands. They will not take the mark of his name. They have the Father's name on their foreheads. They guard his commands, and thereby the world sees that the Father's name is called upon them. That's the endurance of the set apart ones in this last time. And to do this, you're going to have to not love your life even unto death. If it is required of you, you do not take his mark. You have the mark of the Father. You have his name called upon you, and thereby you are safe and you can trust in his name. Ezekiel 36:22 says, therefore say to the house of Israel, thus said the Master Yehovah, I do not do this for your sake, O house of Israel, but for my set apart name's sake, which you have halaled among the Gentiles wherever you went. Think about the damage that it does to the name of Yehovah to tell people things like the barcode is the mark of the beast. Given what we have just read happens to those who accept the mark, they're cast into the lake of fire. Think about what it does. If you tell somebody who is perhaps not a believer, this or that around the world is the mark of the beast, and they go, oh, that sounds bad. Mark of the beast, I'm sure I've heard of that somewhere. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to see what it is. And they learn all of this about the mark of the beast. One of the first things that drew me to the scriptures or reading the scriptures ever in my life was listening to a hip-hop song which talked about the beast in Revelation, the mark of the beast and all of those things. That was one of the first things that caused me to ever read the scriptures. And that song profaned his name and his character, suggesting that certain things were the mark of the beast which weren't. And we must be incredibly careful what we tell other people is the mark of the beast, because it carries such severe consequences to take the mark of the beast, that if we just throw that around unthinkingly, or when we're not absolutely certain, when the prophecies aren't being fulfilled and we just see something which might be used to buy or sell, we have to be very careful, because that profanes his name. People have that as their introduction to the scriptures, and then they go off and they say, oh, so it's the barcode. And if I bought something with the barcode, I'm going to be cast into the lake of fire. That doesn't sound very good. That doesn't sound like a God that I want to worship. It sounds like nonsense, in fact. I don't believe in this Elohim. That's who you've shown Elohim to be to people. So be very careful with the words that you say. People are getting in touch, I believe, at the moment about the mark of the beast, because they believe that the COVID-19 vaccine might well be the mark of the beast. People are saying things like, well, it might be that if you don't get the vaccine, you can't buy or sell. And for many reasons, that is not going to be the case. Okay. The idea of this mandatory vaccine, all these other scaremongery things that people have seen on YouTube videos, it's not going to be the case. But even if it was the case, this is not capable of being the mark of the beast for all of the reasons that we've looked at. It's going to need to be something that you exercise your will to take, okay, to go against the words of Elohim. Yeshua told us there is no matter that enters a man from outside which is able to defile him, but it is what comes out of him that defiles the man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. Really doesn't matter if you have something injected into your body, unless that's contrary to the Torah, then that would be an issue of sin. It wouldn't be the mark of the beast. But no one is able to defile you in such a way as you will be cast into the lake of fire. Certainly not an injection that people will be getting for health reasons, to be healthy. Okay, Yahovah is not like that. We've got to stop profaning his name by suggesting things like that might be true. That all these people are going to unknowingly go along to get a vaccine and then have all taken the mark of the beast. That's a terrible, terrible thing to tell other people. It's not something that we should suggest is true of Yahovah. And for the reasons that I looked at before, this in no way even comes close to fitting in with the prophecy of the mark of the beast and what people are going to be doing, what has led them astray, what has deceived them, and all of those things at that time. In Revelation 20, verse 4, it says, "And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. And the souls of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yeshua and because of the word of Elohim." So they're going to have the word of Elohim at this time, who did not worship the beast nor his icon, and did not receive the mark upon their foreheads or upon their hands. Why? Because of his word. When these things start happening in the future, we're going to have his word, and we're going to recognize them. We can tell other people, but they're going to choose to take the mark of the beast. They're going to choose, when it comes to having their lives taken from them, to be beheaded or to worship the mark of the beast. They're going to choose, sorry, I'm not going to give my life up for the word of Elohim. I'm going to take this mark. I'm going to worship this icon. Okay, this is the word lambano. And this is the word which is translated often as receive. Those who received the mark of the beast. And if we understand that in English, then we can just think of it as, so you might receive something that somebody does to you. If someone ran up and punched you in the face, you could be said in English to have received the punch in the face. But this word lambano carries with it the connotation of having taken something. It's been an exercise of your will to take something. It's not something that somebody can do to you. It's something that you're exercising your will to do. So again, as Yeshua said, there's nothing coming from outside that can defile a man. It's what comes from inside the man. It's his will to do those actions which are wrong. That's what defiles him. Okay, nobody can defile you in such a way as you are irredeemable before Yahovah and will be cast into the lake of fire. It's going to be those people who are given the choice, worship the image of the beast, take his mark, thereby have his name on your forehead and on your hands, or give your life. You've got those people who have the Father's name on their foreheads, those people who are beheaded for the testimony of Yeshua and because of his word, and those people who take the mark, those people who worship the icon. Revelation 15:2-4 says, "And I saw like a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those overcoming the beast and his image and his mark and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, holding harps of Elohim. And they sing the song of Moshe, the servant of Elohim, the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are your works, Yahovah El Shaddai. Righteous and true are your ways, O King of the set-apart ones. Who shall not fear you, O Yahovah, and esteem your name? Because you alone are kind." That's his name. "Because all nations shall come and worship before you, not before the beast." These are the people who have overcome the image of the beast, the mark and the number of his name. These are the ones who esteem Yahovah's name. All nations shall come and worship before him. These are the ones who have overcome. These are the ones who have lost their lives for the testimony of Yeshua and because of the word of Elohim. Revelation 16:2 says, "And the first went and poured out his bowl upon the earth, and an evil and wicked sore came upon men, those having the mark of the beast and those worshipping his image. So when the bowls are poured out, these are the people that are affected. Those who took the mark of the beast and those who worship his image. Those who are told, do it or die. You know what the word of Elohim says? You can either worship this image or you can go with it, worship the beast, take his mark, have his name upon your forehead. And these are people who take the mark of the beast, as opposed to those who have the Father's name on their forehead, who overcome those things. Proverbs 18 verse 10 says, the name of Yahovah is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe. If you have the name of the Father on your forehead, you are safe. His name is a refuge. You're not going to take the mark of the beast. You're not going to be irredeemable before you. You're not going to be fooled into it. It's going to be an exercise of your will, a choice, a hard choice. Give your life or worship the image. But if you trust in his name, it is a refuge to you. Psalm 91 verse 14, because he cleaves to me in love, therefore I deliver him. I set him on high because he has known my name. These things will be terrifying. I have no doubt that these events on the earth will be terrifying. But if you trust in Yahovah, you cleave to him, you have his name written on your forehead, you have his words as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes, you will be safe. He will keep you safe. Yeshua said, fear not, little flock, because your Father did delight to give you the kingdom. He's not trying to trick anybody and to try to take the kingdom away from them. Those who love him and cleave to him in love, he delights to give them the kingdom. He's not excluding them because they've received the mark of the beast. He protects those people because they love him and they cleave to him. They've got his name written on their foreheads. He delights to give them the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give in kindness. Make yourselves purses which do not grow old, a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief does come near nor moth destroys. That is to walk in his name, to have his name on your hand and on your forehead. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. You'll have his commandments engraved on your heart. You'll have his name. You'll have his mark on your heart, on your hand, on your forehead. Let your loins be girded and your lamps burning. Be like men waiting for their master. Therein you will be safe from this mark of the beast, nonsense which will not come upon anybody that did not choose it. Exodus 34, 6-7 says, and Yahovah passed before him and proclaimed, Yahovah, Yahovah, and they are compassionate, showing favor, patient, great in kindness and truth, watching over kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. And that's who he is. And to those people who seek him, that's what he is going to show to them. But by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. He will punish iniquity, and that is his name. Those who don't want his name, the forgiveness, and choose the name of the beast, they will experience his name in the punishment that comes from it. Psalm 116, 4-7 says, then I called upon the name of Yahovah. O Yahovah, I pray to you, deliver my soul. Yahovah shows favor and is righteous, and our Elohim is compassionate. He's not waiting for you to stumble into taking the mark of the beast. I write to you, little children, because your sins have been forgiven on account of his name. He does delight to give you the kingdom if you will do right. You will walk in his ways. Acts 2:21, and it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Yahovah shall be saved. Beloved ones, if our heart does not condemn us, we have boldness towards Elohim. Whatever we ask, we receive from him because we guard his commands, and do what is pleasing in his sight, and thereby his name is called upon us, and all people will see. And this is his command, that we should believe in the name of his Son, Yeshua Messiah, and love one another as he gave us command. The one guarding his command stays in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he stays in us by the Spirit which he gave us. You walk in those things, have his name called upon you, and you will be safe. 1 John 5:13, I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Elohim, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Elohim, that name which is a strong tower and is a refuge. Psalm 9 verse 10, those who know your name trust in you. You have not forsaken those who seek you, O Yehovah. That's not who he is. He delights to give the kingdom to those who seek him and those who walk in his name. John 3:18-20. He who believes in him is not judged, but he who does not believe is judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only brought forth Son of Elohim. And this is the judgment, that light has come into the world, and men loved the darkness rather than the light, for their works were wicked. For everyone who is practicing evil matters hates the light, and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed. It's going to be the same in the time of the end. Light has come into the world, word of Elohim. Men choose darkness rather than light because their works were wicked. We're told in John 15:19-21, Yeshua says, if you were of the world would love its own. But because you're not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, for that reason the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they shall persecute you too. If they've guarded my word, they would guard yours too. But all this they shall do to you because of my name, because they do not know him who sent me. It's going to be the same when we're given the choice. Fall down and do obeisance before the icon, or lose your life. The people who are doing it will gladly persecute us. If they guarded his word, they would guard ours too. But all this they shall do to us because of Yehovah's name. They don't take Yehovah's name, but we have his name on our foreheads, because they do not know him who sent me. And they will choose to take the mark of the beast, to have his name upon their foreheads, to fall down and worship his image. 1 John 3:18-19 says, my little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And by this we know that we are of the truth, and shall set our hearts at rest before him. Don't be fearful of these things, as Yeshua said. Fear not, little flock, because your Father did delight to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give in kindness. Make yourselves purses which do not grow old, a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief does come near, nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. Let your loins be girded and your lamps burning, and be like men waiting for their master. Let's pray. Father, thank you for the assurances that we have in your word, and thank you that you are who you are, and that you delight to give those who seek you your kingdom. Thank you that you've called each one of us out of darkness. Help us to walk in a way that is worthy of you, and to not defile ourselves. Thank you for your patience and for your compassion, for your mercy that you show to each one of us. I pray, Father, that if we are to live in the time of the end, that you would strengthen us in that moment when we're given the choice to fall down and worship the image, or to to be beheaded for the testimony of Yeshua and because of your word. Thank you that you've called us to be your kingdom of priests, your set apart nation.